Chapter 944. Under everyone's gazes, that unlucky youth suddenly prostrated himself on the ground with his head facing downwards in a grand kowtow at Arbor. He fell to the ground with a thud, and his nose bled miserably. Mo Lien, eldest Qin, and the others all turned their heads away, unable to bear watching. The crowd was silent for a second before bursting into guffaws. Duan Yu pulled out a small gold-embroidered fan from somewhere and covered half of his handsome face with it. His peach blossom eyes blinked provocatively as he laughed wickedly. Third brother, what are you doing? The new year has already passed, so you don't need to perform such a grand ceremony. The Duan family's third son, Duan Yonyan, was flushed red from holding back his laughter. He quickly struggled to get up from the ground and looked with a stifled heart at the jeering crowd around him. Those friends in the crowd were all rocking back and forth with laughter, and they even fell down from time to time. And at this juncture, our dear Qiao Mu's expressionless little stoic face was especially eye-catching. Duan Yu leaned over slightly and specially looked at the little stoic's expression. He then pursed his lips and huffed, "Why aren't you laughing? Everyone is laughing, but you're not laughing. So unhappy." He was just trying to make her laugh. "Is it very funny?" Arbor rolled his eyes at him and turned around to throw down the word boring before walking straight into the martial arts center. Everyone present who was laughing heartily all felt awkward, and their expressions suddenly became a bit strange. It was a feeling of wanting to laugh, but suddenly being splashed with a bucket of cold water from top to bottom, and the passion was instantly extinguished. Duan Yu followed in with a guffaw. "Jojo, it wasn't that funny at first. But when I saw those people being intimidated by your cold face, I felt it was very funny." Humph. When Arbor walked into the martial arts center, Hall Master Ho Ping came over to greet him. Her eyes flickered rapidly as she revealed a smile. "Greetings to the Crown Prince and Crown Princess." Ho Ping bowed in greeting. At this time, Fan Qiuming and Hong Boi's forces were crowding at the entrance of the martial arts center. Neither side was willing to back down, so they blocked the entrance. "Ba Wei! Qiuming!" he roared furiously. The two teams squeezed at the entrance like fighting cocks. Before the competition even started, they had already rolled up their sleeves and revealed their fists, ready to go all out. When Zhao Qiran walked over on foot with a personal maidservant, she saw the two groups blocking the door. They refused to budge even half a step and blocked all the people who wanted to enter the door. "Isn't this the Jade Hue House's Miss Ran? Why would a brothel girl come here? Tisk. Does she think that she can still enter the 8 Great Clans competition to watch it?" While everyone was talking, the owner of the Juxian Martial Arts School, Ho Ping, ran out as if she was putting out a fire. She quickly separated the two teams that were about to fight and said, "The competition is about to start. You'd better go in and prepare. Don't be late for the first match." Fan Qiuming and Hong Boi both stepped into the Juxian dojo at the same time. Fortunately, both of them were of standard build. They squeezed through the door and walked in at the same time. The two teams behind them shouted and waved their fists as they also fought to be the first to enter. This caused the owner of the Juxian dojo, Ho Ping, to wipe her sweat and shake her head repeatedly. "Hall Master Ho." Zhao Qiran nodded at Ho Ping and leisurely walked into the martial arts center. Chapter 945. The expressions of the aunties who were currently gesticulating at Miss Ran behind her back instantly turned somewhat unsightly. What a foul atmosphere. How can even brothel girls enter the martial arts center? Isn't that so? Is it a competition or a song of romance? It really gives people a strange feeling. Ho Ping knitted her brows upon hearing this, and she turned to look at those gossipy women. Miss Ran came because of someone's invitation. "Ladies, watch your mouth and don't speak irresponsibly. The aunties all revealed disdainful expressions, but they didn't dare to continue arguing with Ho Ping. Seeing that it was about time, Ho Ping ordered people to close the martial arts center's doors. However, she heard an indifferent voice say, "Wait a moment." Ho Ping turned her head and saw a few young masters and young misses following the separated crowd, slowly walking towards them. The screams of love-struck fools rose and fell in succession from the crowd. Song Yingxiu coldly surveyed her surroundings. "What are you shouting for? Haven't seen a man before." "Young Master Mu Zijuan of the Talisman Patrician family, you've come late." Ho Ping politely nodded at that young sir who was about 18 years old. Mu Zijuan's appearance was unprepossessing, and he was much shorter than the other young masters, with a faint gloomy aura hanging from his face. However, the one Ho Ping hastily ran over to welcome was a handsome young master with a sickly complexion and a white fox fur coat draped tightly around his collar. "Greetings to young Master Yun." "Ah, sixth young master has also come." Shi Guangyun cupped his fists at Dojo Master Ho with a smile and said politely, "Dojo Master Ho, long time no see." "Dojo Master Ho." Sixth Jing smiled faintly. When Ho Ping saw this sickly young master and Sixth Jing, her smile became much more sincere and cordial. Song Yingxiu swept a glance at Shi Guangyun and Sixth Jing before saying coldly to Ho Ping, "Dojo Master Ho, can you bring us in?" Ho Ping opened her martial arts center in the Mo Kingdom capital, so she usually recognized all sorts of high officials and noble people. This Miss Song Yingxiu, the second daughter of the Minister of Revenue, wasn't someone easy to talk to. She didn't dare to slight her at once and repeatedly nodded, inviting Mu Zijuan and Song Yingxiu's party inside. Mu Zijuan and Song Yingxiu's party had 7 or 8 people, while Shi Guangyun and Six Jing had come together as a pair. Thus, the two of them indifferently followed behind Mu Zijuan and the others and entered the dojo together. As soon as Ho Ping closed the door, the heavy dojo doors were closed by 2 body cultivators. Tap, tap, tap. The sound of the stairs made many people turn their heads and look at the stairs. When the Mu family head saw his adopted son, Mu Zijuan, he couldn't help but relax a little. He took a few steps forward and extended his hand. Just as he was about to pat Mu Zijuan's shoulder and exchange a few pleasantries, he saw Mu Zijuan walk past him with an indifferent face. He didn't even let him touch him. Mu family head's hand froze in mid-air, provoking a few mocking laughs from the side. The moment Shi Guangyun and Sixth Jing arrived, Wu Xiao and hastily ran out from the Wu family's ranks and welcomed them with a chuckle. "Sixth young Master Yun, you've come as well." The competition was about to begin. It was said that the rules of today's competition were a little weird. There was no need to draw lots. Whoever was capable could go up. The 6 people who can stand on the field in the end would be considered the winners. Sixth Jing nodded. Shi Guangyun saw Prince Mo with a glance and hastily went up to salute in greeting. Mo Lian was slightly taken aback. She greeted him with a smile before her gaze landed on Sixth Jing. Chapter 946. Just looking at Sixth Jing irritated him. Sure enough, before Prince Mo could open his mouth to exchange pleasantries, the little girl beside him jumped out first, and her pitch-black eyes suddenly brightened. Little Sixth. Seeing that this small claw was about to pat Sixth Jing's shoulder, Mo Lian's eyes were sharp and his hands nimbly pulled her small claw back at once. A certain person was caught off guard and was pulled back by the crown prince. She crashed into his arms with a thud, and her little head hurt from bumping into his hard body. Huifeng silently twitched his mouth. He kept feeling that if he didn't keep a close eye on the crown princess, she would run outside the walls. What should he do? His heart ached for his master. Guarding against this and that, he felt that everyone was especially unreliable. On the side, Duan Yu felt so angry. He discovered that the little girl's eyes would freaking light up every time she saw Sixth Zhang. Why the heck was it like this? Where did this unorthodox Sixth Zhang pop out from? Sixth Zhang. Duan Yu jumped up, but the elderly man, who was silently sipping tea next to him, didn't even look up. He looked calm, but his mouth couldn't help twitching. I haven't sparred with you in a long time. Let's go. I'll compete with you, punk. Duan Yu suddenly jumped down from the second floor. Sixth Zhang naturally wouldn't shrink back. He turned to glance at the little girl before also pressing down on the railing. His body rapidly jumped down and landed steadily in front of Duan Yu. Ho Ping, who was about to announce the competition rules, was speechless as she looked at the two young sirs who jumped onto the competition stage before her. Has the competition started? Fuck, I'm not ready yet. Who went up first? They're simply warriors, all right. Everyone knows that it's more worth it to go later. I heard that the competition rules are that the one standing at the end is considered the winner. That seems to be the Zheng estate's sixth young master. He's not from our 8 great patrician families. Isn't little fourth Duan not qualified to participate in this competition? What was going on? Everyone was dumbfounded as they looked at the 2 people below who had already entered battle mode. Duan Yu gently blinked his beautiful watery eyes and swayed his waist as he chuckled. Little Sixth Zhang, you have to be careful, oh. As soon as he finished speaking, a string of bead-like concealed weapons shot towards Sixth Zhang at top speed. They directly circled around him like a curtain of beads, instantly covering his entire body. Explode. Duan Yu grinned, but a cold glint flickered in his eyes. After a series of loud bangs, little Sixth Zhang's figure was completely shrouded in layers of smoke. A long raven-bone sword appeared in Duan Yu's hand, and a snow-white ray of light suddenly slid past Sixth Zhang's eyes. Duan Yu, what are you doing? The little girl jumped up. Duan Yu actually drew his sword. This guy would only draw his sword when he was about to kill someone. Duan Yu. Don't bully Lil 6. Arbor was so anxious that he jumped down the stairs. Prince Mo didn't even have time to catch it. Seeing the little fellow jump, the corner of his mouth couldn't help but twitch. Behind his master, Hui Feng had a hard time suppressing his laughter. So strange, I keep feeling like the crown prince is going to be cuckolded. That when Duan Yu saw Miss Qiao jump down, he had already stealthily put away his sword. At this time, he was looking at Miss Qiao innocently. I didn't bully little Sixth Zhang. Little Sixth Zhang, are you alright? A certain person wanted to pull little Sixth Zhang up, but Duan Yu pulled her to his side. Chapter 947. Jojo, did you come down to compete? Duan Yu coughed lightly as he held back his laughter. Nope. Why would I compete? It hasn't even started yet. Arbor rolled her eyes at him. She wasn't a fool to be a neurotic bird that stuck her head out. Even if she wanted to compete, she had to look at the situation and compete a few rounds later. Everyone on the second floor. Sixth Zhang was actually fine. Duan Yu still had a sense of propriety in his attacks. Although his concealed weapons looked ferocious, they were actually mostly for show. However, the instant he drew his sword, he indeed wanted to leave something behind on little Sixth Zhang's body. Oh, because he didn't find little Sixth Zhang pleasing to the eye. Cough, cough, cough. Smoke filled the arena on the first floor. After Hall Master Ho Ping jumped down, she hastily waved the smoke in front of her and looked at the little girl with twitching lips. The rules of today's 8 great patrician families gathering are, you can choose any opponent and compete at will. No matter how many rounds you compete, the 6 people standing on this stage in the end will be the victors. And obtain the entrance ticket to the Mystic Beast Forest secret realm. Oh. Arbor nodded and was about to jump down to the second floor with her small paws behind her back. Then I'll come down later. Duan Yu and Six Jing silently turned their heads and secretly glanced at a certain person speechlessly. Whole Master Ho Ping's lips twitched as she grabbed her sleeve. Arbor glanced at her. What? Let go. Cough, Crown Princess. You were originally a contestant representing the Chow family. After coming down, you naturally can't go up again. Everyone on the second floor couldn't help twitching their lips when they heard this. Arbor also looked at Hall Master Ho in bewilderment. What kind of weird rule is this? You didn't say anything earlier. This Ho didn't have a chance to say it. The two young sirs already started fighting just now. Arbor immediately waved her hand. What other rules are there? Say them all at once. There aren't any other rules. It's just that. The principle is that if no one continues to challenge the Crown Princess within an hour, then the Crown Princess will obtain a spot. When the little guy heard this, he immediately became unhappy. He tilted his little head and glared at Ho Ping. If that's the case, then I'm just a target. Finally, someone couldn't hold it in anymore and burst out laughing. Qiao Zhongbang, second Uncle Qiao, and their family had all come to watch the competition. When they heard this, they couldn't help but look at each other, not knowing whether to laugh or cry. Ha 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 ha. At this moment, someone from the Duan clan laughed heartily. A person flew down, carrying a large saber. He snorted and said, Miss Qiao. I am Duan Yubing. Then I won't hold back. Let this Duan experience Miss Qiao's skills first. The old man wanted to grab his grandson, but his hand froze in the air. That bastard jumped faster than a rabbit, and in an instant, he was in front of the Crown Princess. The bird that sticks out gets shot. Can't you be more stable? Why did he have to rush over there? Looking for a beating. With this little girl's skills, the old man only needed to take a glance to know that his stupid grandson definitely wasn't her match. Duan Yu couldn't help but be amused when he saw this. He tugged at Arbor's sleeve and winked at him. Arbor shuddered and quickly pulled his sleeve back from Duan Yu's hand. He then nodded and said, Don't worry, I didn't forget what I promised you. I'll give him a good thrashing. Duan Yu was overjoyed. He grabbed Six Jing, who was beside him, and the two of them flew up to the second floor. Chapter 948. After leaving the stage to the fearless Duan Yubing and Miss Qiao, Duan Yu swiftly hopped to Prince Mo's side and elbowed him. He asked with a sly chuckle, feeling stifled. Stifled my ass. Mo Lien irritably glared at him. Duan Yu propped up his chin and leaned against the railing next to Mo Lien. He turned to look at him and asked, Why don't you tell me? Why is it that every time my Jojo sees little Six Jing, her eyes seem to light up? Mo Lien was also a bit annoyed at the mention of this. How would I know? There are actually things in this world that you don't know. Duan Yu swept his sleeves and simply sat down next to Mo Lien. TSK, it can't be some past life or present life, right? After saying that, this frivolous young Master Duan started chuckling to himself. Mo Lien abruptly turned his head to gaze at Duan Yu with a profound gaze. What did you say? HM. Duan Yu looked back at him in a daze. The instant their gazes met, it was as if a certain realization flashed through their minds. Meanwhile, on the arena on the first floor, Duan Yubing had already put down the large saber slung over his shoulder and was laughing heartily at the little girl who didn't even reach his chest. He swung his robe suavely and stretched out his hand, posturing, Come. I'll give you a handicap of 3 moves. Duan Yu's lips twitched when he heard this posturing after retracting his gaze from Mo Lien's face. On the side, elderly Master Duan almost jumped up from his stool. If his eldest grandson was in front of him right now, he would definitely slap him on the head. This fool. Did he get his head clipped by the door when he left this morning? Compared to young Master Duan Yobing's smug expression, Miss Chiao was much calmer. She merely replied with an "oh" upon hearing this. When eldest Qin saw this, he couldn't help but cover his face with his hand, and then he turned to look at young Master Omega Kotoku, who was staring fixedly at Arbor, and smiled mockingly. Second brother, I saw Miss Ran from Jade Hue Parlor just now. Did you find her? Omega Kotoku shook his head coldly. No. What happened to you? You look like you haven't had enough rest. Omega Kotoku hesitated for a moment before nodding. I've been awakened by nightmares for the past few days. He always felt like he had forgotten something. The scenes in his dreams were always covered with a layer of gray fog. He couldn't see clearly even if he wanted to, which made him very worried. Oh. Eldest young Sir Qin chuckled. I have a physician with good massage skills. You might be able to sleep better if he gives you a few massages at night. Omega Kotoku didn't decline. He just nodded and thanked him. Come, let's do it. Duan Yubing revealed a honeyed smile and lifted his chin at Arbor. Everyone wanted to laugh, but they suddenly saw Miss Chiao's figure vanish into thin air. When she reappeared, she had already catapulted behind Duan Yubing, and a ferocious fist smashed into Duan Yubing's back with a bang. A burly man was sent flying into the air, and he bounced in midair due to inertia. With a loud bang, Duan Yubing was flung by Arbor onto the competition arena's railing and hung pitifully there. Everyone. There was no one else who could be this savage. They hadn't even seen clearly what was going on, all right. He was already flying. When the moving image turned to static, Duan Yubing was already hanging on the railing half dead. Chapter 949. The first move. The little stoic small face was cold as she uttered this sentence indifferently. Old Master Duan's eyelid jerked, and he feigned indifference as he asked Duan Yu beside him, Little Fourth, according to your understanding of the little lady, she wouldn't insist that Little Fifth give her a 3-move handicap, right? What handicap? Didn't he find it a bit funny? He might not be able to defeat the little lady even if he didn't give her a handicap, yet he still had to give her a 3-move handicap. The old master couldn't bear to look at his foolish grandson. Of course. Otherwise, why would Jojo be counting off? Upon closer inspection, Duan Yu was rejoicing in her misfortune, and he even put on an act of consoling her. He said to the old master, Grandfather, don't worry. When we carry Little Fifth back later, he'll at most gain 2 rounds of weight. Old Master Duan glanced at him speechlessly. Didn't his words hurt his heart? Gain 2 rounds of weight. How badly would he be beaten? On the other side, Duan Yubing finally climbed down from the railing with great difficulty. Leaning on his weapon, a large saber that was 3 feet long, he staggered to stand in front of Chiao Mu with great difficulty, an inhumane constipated expression on his face. Arbor's figure flashed, and he swiftly swept toward Duan Yubing. His figure was like a graceful line, so fast that it dazzled the eyes. Duan Yubing's hair instantly stood on end, and his entire body tensed up in a battle-ready stance. He swung his broadsword at Arbor. The little stoic was instantly enraged. You said you'd give me a 3-move handicap. Duan Yubing was stupefied, but the broadsword in his hand reacted faster than him, and the broadsword's glint was already in front of Arbor. However, a burst of mystic energy with an imposing aura broke through the broadsword's glint in a split second, as if it had practically sliced the broadsword's glint into 2. The burst of energy shot back from both sides of Duan Yubing's body and smashed into the martial arts center's wall with a loud bang. Mottled stone powder rustled down inch by inch. The onlookers on the second floor were dead silent. You liar. You actually dared to lie to me. Didn't you say you'd give me a 3-move handicap? Why didn't you? Amidst the silence, the little fellow let out an angry roar. It really did look like it was burning with anger. Old Master Duan rubbed his forehead helplessly and turned to look at his grandson, who was smiling. On the second floor, some guy couldn't hold back his laughter, which led to a series of muffled laughter. Duan Yobing's heart was about to collapse. He opened his mouth, and his voice seemed to be squeezed out from between his teeth. I won't let you go. I won't let you use the last 2 moves. Shameless. Big swindler. The little stoic was furious, and she beckoned with her hand, summoning the feral from her conscious. Furious dragon slash. Mo Lien face-bombed while Duan Yu guffawed on the side. It was really too funny. Duan Yobing's blunder was really too funny. Arbor had always been a person who never changed her mind. Duan Yubing had agreed with her, but he changed his mind halfway through. How could she not be angry? Duan Yubing took a step back and used all the mystic energy in his body to cover the broadsword's blade. In just an instant, the furious dragon slash rushed in front of him. Duan Yobing's defense appeared very fragile in front of Arbor, who had condensed a mystic energy vortex into the shape of a dragon's head. The moment the two collided, the winner was immediately decided. Buzz! After a muffled sound, Duan Yubing once again flipped backward. Following the momentum, he somersaulted twice in a row before finally hanging onto the railing again. Chapter 950. The room was silent. At this moment, everyone on the second floor didn't know what to say. If it was said that Duan Yubing had underestimated his opponent the first time, allowing Arbor to seize the initiative and finish him off with a punch, it could still be said to be a coincidence. But now, in a direct confrontation, Duan Yubing actually couldn't even take a single move from the crown princess. The 8 great patrician families understood each other very well, and the other families' patriarchs and elders were also fairly clear about the stage of Duan Yobing's strength. A level 9 mystic cultivator at his age could be considered a genius. But this genius actually couldn't even take a single move from the crown princess. It was obvious how terrifying the crown princess's true strength was. In reality, after using the Oricon sealing talisman, Arbor was no more than a minor level 7 mystic cultivator in everyone's eyes. The people from the Mu family, Wu family, Fan family, Hong family, and even the Dou family all widened their eyes in disbelief. Among them, only second Dou wasn't the least bit surprised by the crown princess's strength. He took a deep look at Arbor, who was standing on the practice field on the first floor, and a strange glint flitted across his eyes, which was then swiftly restrained. Second brother, you said before that you had once fought alongside the crown princess in Bailon City. Do you think she has already displayed her full strength? The Dou family's eldest young master, Dou Fengmian, glanced at his younger brother curiously. I don't know, but I can sense that her strength is unfathomable. Dou Fenghua shook his head. Wenren Ningjing, who had been sitting on the side with her lips pursed, suddenly interjected, her medical skills are also unfathomable. Dou Fenghua was startled, and he turned to look at his junior sister, Wenren Ningjing. His junior sister, Wenren Ningjing, had been spoiled by Uncle Master De Yuan and Valley Master Wenren into being unruly and naive, but her medical skills were quite good. Today, he actually heard his junior sister praise the crown princess from her own mouth. Dou Fenghua found it a bit strange, so he took another look at Wenren Ningjing. Wenren Ningjing slightly lowered her head in embarrassment. Senior martial brother. Senior brother, I don't want to praise her, but the truth is indeed so. The medicine she makes is even better than my master's. The effect is excellent. If Wenren Ningjing knew that the medicine for removing scars and bruises that Arbor had given her last time in Bailon City was actually something that Arbor had casually stewed using a small stew jar from a street stall, who knew what she would think? Dou Fenghua was slightly startled when he heard that. He understood Wenren Ningjing very well. She was also a rather proud person and absolutely wouldn't lie in front of him. Moreover, there was no need to say that it was fake. Dou Fenghua's heart had a faint trace of calculation. Duan Yubing failed in his challenge and ended in tragedy. In the end, he was carried back to the second floor. When he was placed beside Old Master Duan couldn't help but twitch his lips when he saw his eldest grandson's chubby face. How pitiful! Duan Yu waved his small fan in schadenfreude. Come. Why are you still standing there? Hurry and carry fifth young master home. Send him to his own court and let him recuperate well. Two people came out from the Duan family and hurriedly carried the miserable Duan Yubing away. Before they left, Duan Yubing was still unconscious. They didn't know if he was really knocked unconscious by Jojo or if he was pretending to be unconscious because he was too embarrassed to open his eyes. After all, he was slapped every time, so it really was a bit embarrassing. The field was momentarily silent. Arbor stood all alone on the practice field on the first floor. For a while, no one else jumped down. Chapter 951. Cough. At this time, Ho Ping could only walk to Arbor's side and say to everyone, if no one continues to challenge the Crown Princess within an hour, then the Crown Princess will obtain the first quota. The other patrician families on the second floor all looked at each other in dismay. I'll go. Suddenly, a raised female voice reverberated in the venue. Mu Boming was greatly enraged, and he had just turned around to roar, Chan, when his daughter twisted her waist and did a somersault in the air before landing next to Arbor with a whoosh. The patriarch of the Qin estate, Qin Guelu, remarked with a smile, Family head Mu, your daughter is truly a newborn calf that isn't afraid of a tiger. Anyone could tell that Mu Qianqian basically had no chance of winning if she entered the arena now. Everyone was actually clear that the best method was to let the Crown Princess obtain the first quota, and then they would select the remaining 5 quotas from among them. Rather than forcefully confronting the Crown Princess, it would be better to conserve their strength and strive to obtain an extra quota for their family clan. When Whole Master Hope saw that someone had already entered the arena, he ordered someone to take away the timer and silently retreated from the arena. Arbor, make your move. Let me see what kind of strength the daughter of the capital's new patriarch, the Qiao family's patriarch, has to secure her position as the Qiao family's eldest miss. Mu Qianqian snorted, and a yellow talisman appeared in her left hand, which she threw at Arbor. Arbor's brows twitched, and he also threw out a talisman with a wave of his finger. With a flash of blue light, the 2 talismans drew a semicircle in the air before splitting apart and crashing into each other at the same time. The yellow talisman was instantly devoured by the blue talisman's talisman energy, and it shot toward Mu Qianqian. Mu Qianqian was greatly alarmed, and she threw out a defensive talisman to block in front of her. Bang! Arbor's advanced-level blue attack talisman had already penetrated the defensive talisman Mu Qianqian had set up and was heading straight for Mu Qianqian's face. Mu Boming instantly jumped up from his seat when he saw this, and he stared in shock at the blue talisman Arbor had thrown out. High-level blue attack talisman. This kind of talisman had never been circulated on the market. In the entire talisman aristocratic family, besides him, there were absolutely no more than 3 elders who were capable of drawing such a high-grade offensive talisman. Why would this little girl have such a talisman? Defensive talisman. Mu Qianqian, whose expression had changed drastically, instantly threw out 4 to 5 defensive talismans in front of her face. However, it was useless. It was still useless. She watched as the offensive talisman pierced through her defensive talismans, completely ignoring her defenses, and approached her eyes. In the nick of time, Mu Qianqian pulled out a hairpin from her hair and smashed it on the ground. After a loud bang, a shield-shaped defensive barrier suddenly appeared in front of her, blocking the attack of the blue talisman. The 10th grade defensive profound artifact displayed its greatest effect and blocked this wave of attack in an instant. Arbor's eyes flashed. He frowned and said, "If you're going to use a talisman, then use a talisman. Why did you open a defensive shield?" Mu Qianqian only felt that the young girl was humiliating her with these words, and her face flushed bright red. Her small hand under her sleeve tightly gripped the soul swap talisman that Sir Black Cat had given her. However, if she dared to use the soul swap talisman under everyone's watchful eyes right now, it would definitely bring her a great deal of trouble. At that time, she might become the target of public criticism right after the soul swap was successful, and she might be burned alive as a bunch of witches who would mistake her for a curse practitioner. At this time, Arbor suddenly swiped his hand across the air. Chapter 952. A row of talismans floating with blue light lined up neatly in front of Arbor after several whooshing sounds. There were no less than a dozen talismans. The row of high-rank blue attack talismans contained powerful talisman energy, and they were like arrowheads waiting to be fired at their owner's command. This time, those elders of the Mu family couldn't sit still any longer, and they all jumped up from their stools as they stared in shock at the talismans in front of Arbor. So many high-rank blue attack talismans. Mu Boming sucked in a cold breath, his entire person in an extremely unstable and stupefied state. He stared blankly at the expressionless little lady standing in the arena, and his fists involuntarily clenched tightly. He turned his head and couldn't suppress the indignation in his voice. "Elder Piao, do you think this little lady is a high-rank great talisman practitioner?" The one Mu Boming addressed as Elder Piao was the one who looked the most mellow among the Mu family elders, and he was also the head elder of the talisman patrician family. "High-rank great talisman practitioner, high-rank great talisman practitioner." Mu Boming muttered to himself. His entire being was rather agitated as he abruptly raised his head to look at the arena. He abruptly raised his hand and stood up. "Wait. Don't joke around. How could his daughter Mu Qianqian be a match for a high-rank great talisman practitioner?" With a move of Arbor's fingers, more than a dozen high-rank attack talismans circled around Mu Qianqian, shooting one talisman after another outside Mu Qianqian's defensive barrier. After the defensive barrier blocked the first, second, and third high-rank attack talismans, that hairpin-shaped defensive mystic weapon started to crack from the tail. By the time it received the fifth high-rank attack talisman, the entire defensive mystic weapon instantly crumbled and turned into fine powder. The remaining high-rank blue attack talismans instantly leaped in front of Mu Qianqian. Just as she was about to turn into dregs, Mu Qianqian shouted and raised her hand feebly. I admit defeat. I admit defeat." A trace of fury flitted through Arbor's eyes, and he leaped up without another word, punching Mu Qianqian's left cheek. Mu Qianqian staggered back several steps before collapsing on her butt. She spat out a mouthful of blood, and her aura instantly wilted, cutting an extremely sorry figure. Her cold fingers tightly grasped the soul exchange talisman hidden under her sleeve. She suddenly raised her eyes to look in a direction on the second floor. Lord Black Cat was hiding there, looking at her disheveled state without any reaction. Mu Qianqian gritted her teeth, and her butt shifted slightly as she crawled back several steps. While coughing up blood, she shouted, I admit defeat, admit defeat. Don't attack me again." Seeing the little stoic approaching, Mu Qianqian actually let out an ear-piercing shriek. It was evident that she was terrified of this little fiend in front of her. Now that her face had been shattered into pieces, she naturally didn't care about anything else. In any case, he had to save his own life first. Arbor took back the remaining high-level offensive talismans, looked at her coldly, and said, "Have your family's talisman expert come out." It was only at this point that the astonished crowd came back to their senses one by one and clearly heard the conversation between Elder Pei and Mu Boming. Everyone was endlessly shocked in their hearts. The Crown Princess is actually a high-level Great Symbol Master. Not only was the Crown Princess a mystic cultivator whose cultivation couldn't be seen through, she was also an expert in talismans. How old was she? Even if she started practicing in her mother's womb, she couldn't possibly have become a high-level Great Symbol Master now, right? Mu Qianqian coughed up another mouthful of blood before putting the Soul Exchange talisman back into the depths of her sleeve. Chapter 953. I might not be good, but don't be smug. Mu Qianqian scoffed. Our Mu family has many talisman experts. Why you think that you're very awesome? Cough, cough, cough. After saying that, she even stubbornly glared fiercely at Arbor. Arbor shook his head. I don't know if I'm awesome or not. That's why I want to find someone to compete with. Everyone. They kept feeling that this child was inadvertently speaking the truth, which would infuriate them to death. That Mu Liangde from your family isn't as good as you. This child turned around and said this. Mu Boming was about to choke to death from her straightforward words. His gaze shifted to Mu Jilan, who had an unsightly expression, before turning to look at the gloomy Mu Zijuan on the other side. Mu Zijuan creased his brows. Zijuan, don't go. Mu Boming couldn't help but shout when he saw this child's movements. Don't joke around. None of the Mu family's juniors were a match for an advanced-level Great Talisman practitioner. Since that was the case, why go up and invite humiliation? He might as well just let her get a spot and enter the arena. Mu Boming's plan was good, but the problem was that Mu Zijuan didn't listen to him at all. When he heard the elder's gasps and came back to his senses, he saw that Mu Zijuan had already leaped down and entered the center of the arena. Damn it! Mu Boming hatefully pounded his fists, a furious glint bursting out of his eyes. This brat had never listened to his words, and he had lost a spot for him for nothing. If he rashly went up, he would only seek defeat. Apart from this, there was simply no chance of victory. The elders also said angrily, why is Zijuan so disobedient? If he continues like this, he will undoubtedly suffer a crushing defeat. I originally wanted to let him and Jilan fight for the Mu family's honor together. It would be best if they could obtain 2 spots. Mu Zijuan stood in the center of the arena with his hands behind his back, his gaze coldly hostile toward Arbor. Use your talisman. Let me, Mu Zijuan, experience just how superb your talisman arts are. Okay. Arbor went straight to the point without another word. He raised his finger, and a fire talisman with a blue glow instantly landed in front of him. Go! With a wave of her finger, the entire talisman split open. With the force of a thunderbolt and a powerful talisman energy, it instantly flew in front of Mu Zijuan. With a boom, the flames surged. Mu Zijuan felt as if his entire body had fallen into a sea of fire. His surroundings were filled with bright red flames, piercing his eyes to the point of discomfort. Fortunately, he was prepared and immediately activated the defense talisman. These 2 talismans were given to him by the elder. They were high-level talismans, and although they were only yellow talismans, they should be able to withstand the fire attacks of Arbor without a problem. Fire attack. Why was there a fire attack? The blue offensive talismans that Arbor had thrown at Mu Qianqian earlier were offensive talismans that contained powerful mystic energy. The mystic energy in the offensive talismans drawn by them wouldn't exceed 70% of the talisman practitioner's own strength. And now, if it wasn't an offensive blue talisman, then what was it? Mu Zijuan had simply never heard of or seen a fire attack. Even Mu Boming, Elder Pei, and the others were stupefied. Mu Boming gaped as he rummaged through all the talisman information in his mind. Finally, his hoarse voice trembled with fear as he said, "See, could it be the 5 spirit talisman? Of the fire spirit talismans? How is that possible?" Elder Pei felt his own breathing quicken. Chapter 954. A high-level talisman technique like the 5 spirit talisman was an exquisite talisman technique that could only be learned in the main clan of the Divine Mainland. Mu Boming, Elder Pei, and the others only felt as if their eyes weren't enough to take in everything as they followed the nimble little figure in the arena. They saw her stretch out her hand. Paw! 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 She brandished 3 fire spirit talismans, causing them to split open at the same time. The fire spirit power within converged into a long dragon, which whipped straight at Mu Zijuan, who was enveloped in flames. Shit, this little lady was too savage. Everyone shuddered inwardly, and they looked sympathetically at Mu Zijuan, who was heavily enveloped in flames. At this time, Mu Zijuan's 2 defensive talismans were already completely insufficient. He could only do his best to dash left and right in the flames, attempting to break out of this heavy encirclement. At this time, he suddenly heard the sound of wind breaking through the air. A flame spirit whip lashed onto the back of his hand, leaving behind a fiery mark on his hand. Mu Zijuan subconsciously withdrew his hand, and with a furious roar, he threw an immobilization talisman at the little lady. Immobilize! Everyone in the arena held their breaths as they stared blankly at Miss Xiao, who had an immobilization talisman stuck on her body. She was done for this time. Mu Zijuan threw out a legendary immobilization talisman. Before he could finish lamenting, he saw the little lady rip off his immobilization talisman with a swish and casually crumple it into a ball. With a wave of her hand, 4 to 5 immobilization talismans were thrown back. So be it. Everyone couldn't help but twitch their mouths, feeling as if they were looking at an oddball as they looked at the little lady in the arena. What was going on? Wasn't this the #1 talisman patrician family on Seikong planet? How did the talisman patrician family's genius, Mu Zijuan, get caught unprepared by the little lady, and now he was actually immobilized on the spot? Boom! Waves of cheers erupted in the arena, and the majority of the spectators couldn't help but stand up along the railings, their gazes shining as they looked at the expressionless little lady leaning on top of him. Qinghuan. Qinghuan answered and appeared in the large arena, about to shoot Mu Zijuan to death with a mouthful of ice. A black figure suddenly leaped down from the arena and shouted with a chuckle, "Little lady, wait." Seventh Lord. Mu Boming's breathing abruptly stopped, and everyone in the Mu family stood up in awe as they reverently looked at the black-robed man in the arena. His Mu Zijuan's face eyes shone with a strange light. Even rarely seen, who is this person? Mo Lian creased his brows slightly before looking at Duanyu, who was enjoying the show on the side. This person's identity is very mysterious. Yu's master uses, Duanyu whispered, according to our family's patriarch, this person should have come from the upper 3 provinces. He was still sitting here, but this son of a bitch actually revealed his words to others without any hesitation. The Divine Province. Mo Lian was taken aback. He had naturally heard of the Divine Province's Mu clan's reputation. The Mu clan of the Talisman Patrician family here perhaps couldn't even compare to a pinky finger of the Mu clan of the Divine Province. His JoJo's against the Mu clan of the Divine Province. Mo Lian's heart clenched. Chapter 955. You're called Arbor. When the man uttered the 2 words, Arbor, his expression changed slightly, and a strange light seemed to circulate in his eyes as he stared at her. Arbor nodded. This humble one is Mu Jingrui. The black-clothed man smiled faintly, and with a flick of his finger, a talisman circulating with jade light jumped between the two of them. It was a jade talisman, a rare sight. Arbor gazed at that talisman, her eyes brightening slightly, and her mood instantly improved. To be able to use an advanced-level summoning talisman to summon a divine beast, this little girl is indeed extraordinary. How about letting this Mu experience your brilliant moves today? The black-clothed man wasn't provoking her, but he truly wanted to test the little girl's skill. Just now, he saw her opening the talisman extremely fast and smooth, so she must be a disciple of a talisman master. What the hell was an advanced-level summoning talisman? Everyone was bewildered when they heard this. Why did they feel that the man's words were clear when they were taken apart, but the meaning was especially hard to understand when they were put together? Their hesitant gazes finally landed on the Qingyuan spiraling in the air with some horror. Mu Boming nearly blurted out in shock, "This is a summoned beast." Wow, everyone was in an uproar. It was said that summoning talismans were on the verge of extinction, because on the entire Sikong planet, only the talisman patrician family had a single summoning talisman. In the entire talisman patrician family branch, no one could draw a new summoning talisman. Mu Boming couldn't, and those two all-powerful advanced-level great talisman masters and elders also couldn't. But now, this little girl in front of them could draw summoning talismans. Seventh Master's meaning was that this divine bird Qingyuan was actually summoned by the little girl's summoning talisman. Heh, what a terrifying joke. Come. Arbor waved her white hand and directly took out 3 advanced-level attack talismans drawn with ebony. They whooshed over to the black-clothed man. The two powerful talisman forces collided, and in a split second, the two people's outer garments were blown up. The 3 advanced-level attack talismans were all blocked by the jade talisman thrown out by the black-clothed man. Arbor's gaze shifted, and she quickly retreated and threw out 4 explosion talismans. The moment the talisman shot out, it immediately exploded. The large martial arts practice field was filled with bursts of explosive sounds. The hard blue and white tiles of the first floor were actually blasted open by these layers of explosions. A defensive talisman array formed by defensive talismans had unknowingly appeared in front of the man in black. The moment the defense glyph array was activated, an impregnable wall seemed to have been built around his body, completely blocking the power of the explosion. At the same time, the black-clothed man raised his hand, and an offensive jade talisman that resembled a stream of light exploded. The surging profound energy that erupted from the talisman almost instantly rushed over, as if it wanted to tear Arbor apart. Arbor threw out 3 defensive talismans in a row to defend herself. Then, she leaped into the air, and with a flash, the water talisman raised a huge water screen in front of her. The other party's offensive jade talisman was quite impressive. This time, it penetrated the barrier formed by the 3 defensive talismans and exploded upon contact with the water screen that connected heaven and earth. The water mist that filled the sky swirled down, and a startled swan dagger appeared in Arbor's hand. As her figure flashed, the dagger was already swiping at the other party's chest. The speed was astonishing. Many people from the other patrician families practically held their breaths at the same time. They only felt that their eyes couldn't keep up with the two people fighting. Chapter 956. The two started off with a strong exchange of blows, stabbing, chopping, punching, and kicking. Within a short few minutes, they had rapidly exchanged over 100 moves. The more they fought, the more the man's eyes seemed to glow. The startled swan dagger in Arbor's hand was sharp, and with a light slash, she sliced off a strand of the black-clothed man's long hair. The black-clothed man was slightly shocked, and he inwardly praised, "What a great startled swan dagger," as expected of that person. The mystic light on the startled swan dagger swelled, and in the next second, he grabbed the sharp blade with one hand. Clang! A soft sound rang out, and everyone let out a cry of alarm. Especially Mu Boming, who was constantly paying attention to Seventh Master. His expression turned very ugly. However, it was as if the dagger had collided with jade and couldn't advance any further. It turned out that this person's hand was covered in a layer of Vajra talismans. Big brother, you're so awesome. Arbor withdrew the startled swan dagger, her small face flushed with a peculiar expression. Even if I covered it with a Vajra talisman, it wouldn't be able to do anything to my dagger. If she covered it with a Vajra talisman, she wouldn't dare to clash head-on with the startled swan dagger because she knew better than anyone how sharp the dagger was. She couldn't defeat the startled swan dagger barehanded, which showed how powerful the Vajra talismans that person made were. Moreover, the defensive talisman matrix he released earlier was composed of 24 defensive jade talismans. It could block the combined attacks of many mystic cultivators below the spiritual realm, so its defensive power was quite impressive. With her current talisman crafting level, it was definitely very difficult for her to carve so many defensive jade talismans at once. This big brother was too awesome. On the contrary, Mu Jingrui laughed out loud. Little fellow, when I was your age, I was only an intermediate entry-level little talisman practitioner. Oh you're already pretty good. Mu Jingrui gave her 100% affirmation and praise. Arbor blinked and asked curiously, Big brother, what level are you as a talisman practitioner? Black level perfection. As for you, if I'm not wrong, you should be an advanced and proficient talisman practitioner. Little fellow, you're pretty good. The words, big brother, were a bit shocking. Mu Jingrui wanted to laugh on the inside, but he still gave Arbor an accurate answer. Black level. In other words, this person's talisman energy was only a step away from the Earth-grade talisman master level. Above the senior talisman master were the ranks of Heaven, Earth, Black, and Yellow. At present, she hadn't even broken through to the Yellow rank. The gap between her and this Mu clan's profound rank Great Talisman Master could be said to be like the difference between Heaven and Earth. However, she had the Golden Talisman Jade Tome in her possession. She only needed to open the 7th Jade Slip to learn how to draw yellow Great Talismans. This was the allure of a peerless inheritance. The people of the world devoted themselves to traveling around the immortal mountains and beautiful rivers in hopes of finding a heavenly abode of immortals and obtaining the inheritance of an expert. As for that person's entry level and mastery level, they were all aimed at the speed of drawing talismans. The mastery level's talisman drawing speed was naturally much faster than the entry levels. Arbor thought, this 7th master of the Mu family probably isn't a member of a talisman patrician family from Seikong planet's mainland. Thinking this way, the stoic face didn't change in the slightest. She nodded and praised the man. You're also pretty good, big brother. Ahem. Mu Jingrui coughed lightly. Little fellow, may I ask, what is this dagger in your hand? Oh, this was left behind by my teacher. Arbor conveniently stored the startled swan dagger into her conscious. When she looked up, she saw that Mu Jingrui's expression was clearly startled. Chapter 957. Mu Jingrui paused for a moment before asking hesitantly, he's your teacher? Arbor glanced at him in confusion before nodding. Emichim, she planned to drag the little monk to the inheritance mystic realm in 2 days to retrieve something. Since she was going there to accept the inheritance and test, she naturally had to address him as her teacher. Mu Jingrui smiled, his expression very gentle. Speaking of which, your teacher and I are somewhat related. If you don't mind, you can call me 7th uncle. After saying that, he took a deep look at Arbor. Arbor did not think much of it and only felt that this person was not bad. Whatever he called her would be a form of address, so she nodded and said, 7th Uncle Mu. Mu Jingrui smiled gently. Jojo, may I borrow a summoning talisman to learn? Arbor waved her hand, and a summoning talisman made of ebony floated in front of Mu Jingrui. The latter looked a little excited as he reached out to receive it. "Jojo, let me study for a night and return it tomorrow." Arbor shook her head. "You can have it. I still have a lot here, so I don't need it." Ever since she summoned the little white snake, her summoning talismans had become a pile of scrap wood again. She could not summon anything. She reckoned that she had reached her summoning limit. The current her was no longer the rookie who could summon weak chickens. Mu Jingrui chuckled and accepted it immediately. "Alright, then seventh uncle will go up first. I'll wait for you to win and obtain a spot." Mu Boming knitted his brows slightly when he saw this. He did not expect seventh master to value this little girl Arbor so much. However, it made sense. The main family would also want to recruit a little girl who could draw summoning talismans. When he thought of how Xiao Mu, a mere child, had effortlessly obtained the Divine Province's main family's favor, Mu Boming felt extremely displeased. "Mu Xilan. Xilan." Mu Boming immediately interrupted her and pulled her behind him, glaring at her in displeasure. The Mu family only had Mu Xilan who could compete now. At that time, whether or not she could get a place for the Mu family would all depend on her. Mu Xilan creased her brows and resentfully retreated to Mu Boming's side. She looked up at the arena on the first floor. Even seventh uncle from the main family praised Arbor. She really wanted to go up and try it herself. Why did she know how to draw that summoning talisman? She really wanted to know if Arbor had any powerful legacies. Otherwise, with her strength alone, how could she have inexplicably drawn a summoning talisman? Mu Boming and the several elders of the Mu clan also stole a few surreptitious glances at Xiao Mu, feeling like ants were gnawing at their hearts. They were also extremely curious as to why she could draw summoning talismans. Mu Boming even inwardly calculated, if they could learn the method of drawing summoning talismans from this little girl, then wouldn't their branch family on Seacone Planet be like a carp leaping over the Dragon Gate? Everyone had different thoughts. In the arena on the first floor, the ground was cracked by the battle just now. At this time, Arbor was standing in the center of the cobweb-like ground, looking up at the people from the other 7 patrician families. After waiting for a long while, just as Arbor was about to fall asleep, a cold voice suddenly sounded. A cold voice suddenly slid through the air. "Let me deal with eldest Miss Xiao." A cyan figure flashed, and a boy around 18 years old abruptly flipped down from the second floor and landed in front of Arbor. Chapter 958. It's you. The moment Arbor saw this brat, his eyes emitted a substantial killing intent. His furious gaze contained a trace of heavy pressure as it instantly attacked the brat. The brat only spoke half a sentence. "Do family's do kue." Boom. Without another word, Arbor took out his ferrule and charged in his direction. He didn't even give him time to reveal his identity, and directly slapped down with his ferrule. Vast profound energy wrapped in a line of fire, and with a slip, it charged towards the brat named Do Kue. Do Kue was momentarily stunned. He really didn't expect that the moment he stepped onto the arena, his opponent's killing move would be right in front of him. Just how anxious was he to destroy him? Do Kue was also enraged. He opened his mouth and shouted, "Three-headed silver centipede lizard. Come out." Bang! With a huge tremor, a large lizard with 3 malevolent heads and a slippery tail appeared on the arena on the first floor. It was so ugly that he couldn't bear to look at it. A trace of anger flashed through Arbor's eyes. The ferrule in his hand slapped down again, and 2 talismans flew out from his fingers without any explanation. The 2 body-securing talismans flew out, causing Do Kue's heart to be fiercely shocked. Without any explanation, he lay down on the ground, barely dodging the 2 talismans that flew over. The defensive barrier quickly activated, and Do Kuei angrily shouted, "Arbor, you actually didn't follow the rules." Arbor didn't say a word. His fingertips moved, and a handful of medicinal powder scattered over. Do Kuei was greatly alarmed, and hastily retreated. Thinking again, he was inside the defensive barrier anyway, so why would he need to be afraid of the lowly medicinal powder she threw over? On the other side, Qingyuan flapped its wings towards the wriggling three-headed silver centipede lizard on the ground. Icicles rapidly fell, shooting out hundreds of them at once. The three-headed silver centipede lizard crawled twice, then suddenly hissed twice. Its tail trembled and swung, and a poisonous fog shot towards Qingyuan, who was hovering in the air. "A little reptile dares to be impudent in front of your grandfather." Qingyuan coldly cursed, then swooped down. Ice shards fell from its mouth, instantly burying the three-headed silver centipede lizard. Boom! The three-headed silver centipede lizard knocked away the ice shards piled on its back and hissed angrily twice. It turned its head and actually abandoned Qingyuan in a very human-like manner and went straight to Arbor where Do Kuei was fighting. Mo Lian's phoenix eyes instantly turned cold. She gripped the railing with both hands and leaned forward to look at him with a cold gaze. On the side, Duan Yu also jumped up and angrily rebuked, "You beast, you still dare to injure people." Hiss! Scram! When Arbor saw the three silver centipede lizards running over, his eyes were filled with intense rage. She recalled the heart-wrenching encounter in her previous life. Her Shaolin clothes were in tatters and her body was bruised all over. She had been abused to the point that there wasn't a single piece of unharmed flesh on her body. He was thrown into the wilderness like a pile of garbage and left to be gnawed by wild dogs. The family that had adopted her and abused her was a branch of the Do family, Do Kuei's parents. After her sister was adopted, she had gone to the rich family's house several times to peek at her. She remembered this face, she remembered it. It was him, Do Kuei. She had finally met the culprit who caused her sister's death. Arbor sneered, and with a flick of her hand, she sprinkled several types of poisonous powder at that foolish three-headed silver centipede lizard as if it didn't cost anything. Presumably, this three-headed silver centipede lizard had gnawed on her sister quite a bit back then. Go to hell. Beast! Chapter 959. No wonder Shaolin-er's body was so tattered. Was that something wild dogs could gnaw on? That was the masterpiece of the Do clan and the three-headed silver centipede lizard. Afterwards, the corpses were thrown into the wild, and that group of dogs took advantage of them. TSK. How could she let them die in despair and pain? Arbor's eyes shot out a strong hatred, and she suddenly smiled like a spring breeze. 10 explosion talismans flew straight from her fingertips, surrounding the three-headed silver centipede lizard's body. Explode! Bang bang bang! As if fireworks were set off on the scene, the three-headed silver centipede lizard's body was instantly ignited by the raging flames, and its entire back emitted terrifying explosive sounds. Arbor's figure flashed, and like a ferocious little beast, she angrily rushed over. A crow-repeating crossbow already appeared in her hand, and a crow gold arrow shot out with a whoosh. In the next second, it instantly pierced through the three-headed silver centipede lizard's back, causing it to be pushed back a distance by the huge force of inertia, heavily crashing into the wall. Go die! Arbor's eyes flashed fiercely, and 3 crow gold arrows shot out at the same time again. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. After a series of consecutive shots, the three-headed silver centipede lizard was tragically shot into the wall, half hanging there, fresh blood dripping down. The entire arena was silent. Everyone's breathing almost stopped. Pairs of eyes stared in shock at this girl who suddenly exploded with a fierce killing move. The people of the Do clan were especially shocked. They stared blankly at the little girl on the field, and a thought slowly turned in their minds. Do Kuei's mystic beast died. Now it's your turn. Slag. Arbor swung her ferrule, and quickly rushed towards Do Kuei, who had been flipped over by Qing Wan's wing. Because his mystic beast died, Do Kuei suffered a backlash, and a mouthful of old blood sprayed out from his mouth. His face was full of fear as he opened his mouth to beg for mercy and admit defeat. But in that instant, he opened his mouth and discovered, fuck, there's actually no sound. He had no sound. The poison that Arbor threw at him just now was to make him mute. What kind of joke was this? If he admitted defeat, how could she continue? Today, she was going to show everyone how she could slice human flesh on the spot. A sinister and vicious glint flitted across Xiao Mu's eyes, and a bone-chilling smile surfaced on her lips as she curled them up. Are you ready? Are you ready to be hacked into pieces? Ha 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 ha. A hatchet appeared in her hand. That's right, it was a rusty wood-cutting knife. It was the knife that father used to chop firewood in the village from time to time. It was very old-fashioned and blunt, but unexpectedly, it was very much to her liking. Arbor raised his head and glanced at Xiao Zhongbang and the others. At this moment, Jolin was standing beside Xiao Zhongbang. His little face was pink and tender as he looked curiously at the competition below. You see, now that I've killed your mortal enemy, he won't be able to harm you in the future. My dear sister, in this life, you will live peacefully and happily. You will no longer suffer any pain or torment. So, please stop. Miss Xiao. Crown Princess. Eldest young Master Do reached out and touched the railing as he shouted with a face full of shock. From the looks of it, the Crown Princess was going to kill Do Kuei. Arbor's right hand, covered with the Vidra talisman, had already fiercely grabbed Do Kuei. Her 5 fingers dug deep into Do Kuei's chest. That gesture was as if she was gouging out his heart. It was abnormally ruthless and frightening. Chapter 960. Second Do also stood up. He clearly saw that the depths of the Crown Prince Consort's eyes were clearly filled with severe hatred. But hatred. Could it be that the Crown Princess's hostility towards the Do family all came from this branch family? But why? Second Do couldn't figure it out and secretly ordered the disciple behind him. The disciple nodded and then turned to leave. Crown Princess, please calm down. I don't know how my Do family's Do Kuei has offended you. Xiao Mu's fist landed on Do Kuei's face. Just as he collapsed against the wall, the 5 fingers that had pierced into his chest deepened. I want to see what color your heart is. Only Do Kuei clearly knew how horrifying it was when the little girl in front of him said those words with her head tilted and her face paralyzed. Malicious spirit. It was as if she was a malicious spirit that crawled up from the underworld. This kind of expression made him vaguely feel as if he saw the gates of the underworld open for him. Do you know what it feels like to have a tattered body? Do you know what it feels like to be naked after death and even have your last shred of dignity taken away by you? Arbor leaned close to his face, her eyes flashing with an ice-cold light. I'll let you try it. Do Kuei's mouth was wide open, but he couldn't make a single sound. Fear and dread engulfed his heart. His entire body trembled and he almost went limp in her hand. Why did a mere competition turn into taking his life? The face of the seemingly cold and beautiful little girl in front of him was like a ghost smeared with blood. It looked extremely terrifying. Chi-Law. Arbor withdrew her 5 fingers, bringing out a piece of clothing, minced flesh, and blood. She coldly looked at the person paralyzed on the wall. His gaze was sluggish and hesitant. Because of the intense pain, his 4 limbs began to twitch. Enjoy your last bit of despair. Arbor coldly released her hand and raised the firewood chopping knife in her hand. She turned a deaf ear to the shouts of the people on the second floor and chopped down with the knife. What came out of that chop was a piece of flesh from Do Kuei's arm. Then, without waiting for the surrounding people to cry out in alarm and react, dozens of hundreds of sabers were slashed out at an extremely fast speed. Although it looked chaotic and disorderly, in reality, only a small piece of Do Kuei's flesh was sliced off every time. It was truly a punishment of 1,000 cuts. Ah! The Do family members belatedly screamed. Eldest young Master Do's forehead was covered in cold sweat as he landed on the field with a whoosh. Do Kuei has admitted defeat, Crown Princess. He didn't admit defeat. Arbor glanced sideways at eldest young Master Do and said coldly, "Are you trying to break the rules of the competition?" Eldest young Master Do looked into Arbor's cold and emotionless eyes, not knowing what to say for a moment. The people from the other clans all swallowed their saliva. You won. Crown Princess. Yes. You defeated the Crown Princess. You got a spot. That's right. Come up quickly. I'm about to pee my pants, okay? Who would dare to compete with such a ferocious person? Hurry up and worship her like a bodhisattva and give her a spot. He didn't admit defeat. Arbor said coldly, not a single ripple of emotion in her eyes. Even some people who weren't familiar with her started to feel that did the great Crown Princess forget to take her medicine today? With a whoosh, Mo Lien quickly flashed to her side. A warm hand caressed the back of her hand as she softly called out, "Jojo." Chapter 961. Jojo. Jojo, Jojo. He tugged her small hand over and gently pulled her into his embrace, his other hand stroking her small head back and forth to soothe her. He could sense that the little fellow's body was extremely taut right now, and her entire being was in an abnormally stiff and icy state. She was trembling. What was his little fellow afraid of? This kind of little person truly made one's heart ache too much, and it made his heart ache endlessly. If it was possible, he was willing to hold the sun, moon, and universe in his hands in exchange for her simple smile. Jojo, oh Jojo, what exactly are you hiding in your heart? Why are you unwilling to confide in me? Let's not compete anymore, let's go home. Mo Lien picked her up and whispered next to her ear, "Darling, don't be scared. You have me if anything happens." After saying this, she abruptly glanced to the side, and a ruthless gaze landed on the nearby Do Kuei. At this moment, Do Kuei was in a rather wretched state. His forelimbs were already exposing eerily white bones, and blood was still gushing out from his chest. From the looks of it, even if they carried him back to save him, he could only be reduced to a complete cripple. Very soon, the Crown Prince received a qualification tablet from Hall Master Ho and left the arena with Arbor in his arms. Duan Yu and the Qiao family group naturally weren't in the mood to continue watching, so they quickly ran out after them. Eldest Qin propped his chin up with one hand and tilted his head to look pensively at Omega Kotoku. "Second brother, what are you thinking about?" Omega Kotoku returned to his senses and reflexively glanced at eldest Qin, but he didn't say anything. He just inexplicably felt a trace of oppression in his heart. A very strange emotion lingered around his chest, as if it couldn't be brushed away, but it was also very hazy in his memory. Sir Black Cat, who had been secretly observing from a dark corner, mixed into the crowd at this time and elbowed the pale-faced Mu Qianqian. Mu Qianqian seemed to have been frightened by Arbor's ruthlessness, and she shuddered when Sir Black Cat touched her. It was as if she had been touched by something filthy, and she almost jumped up. Lord Black Cat lowered its head and wore a thick hood. Because he was shorter than the average person by at least half, as long as he did not deliberately touch the waist or legs of others, he would not attract anyone's attention. Mu Qianqian turned around and nodded at him in understanding. She then bent her back and shrunk out from the back of the crowd, following Sir Black Cat as they quietly walked downstairs. If we don't make a move now, when will we? Lord Black Cat's mouth, which was hidden under its black hood, flashed a cold smile. It lowered its voice and said, "The young lady is in low spirits now and is defenseless. You idiot, you don't dare to make a move with such a good opportunity. If you miss today, it will be even more difficult in the future." Will I succeed? When Mu Qianqian recalled Arbor's ruthless methods from before, her body involuntarily shuddered again. Yes. Lord Black Cat licked its lips, a strange glint in its eyes. An emotion called greed bloomed in the depths of his eyes. Mu Qianqian tightly grasped the soul swap curse under her sleeve and nodded fiercely. She steeled her heart and said, "Okay. I'll go now." After saying this, she clenched her fists tightly and turned around to dash madly toward the entrance of the martial arts center. When she exited, she saw His Highness the Crown Prince carrying that little bitch to the carriage. When Mu Qianqian saw that Arbor's expression was a bit dazed, she immediately narrowed her cold eyes. "Arbor, your good days have come to an end." Chapter 962. Quite a few people had gathered around where the carriage was parked, watching curiously. There were also several beggars sitting in the corner, filthy and in rags. They leaned against the wall and occasionally stretched out their hands to beg the people who walked past them. Mo Lian ignored these people and placed Arbor on the carriage. She then turned around and whispered something to Duanyu, who had run over. Qiao Zhongbang and his wife also quickly followed over, anxious to check on their daughter's condition. Anyone with a discerning eye could see that there was something wrong with their daughter's mood just now. And right at this moment, Mu Qianqian arrived at the back of the carriage with a flash. Her brows twitched fiercely as she softly recited the spell terms that Sir Black Cat had taught her. The soul swap curse under her sleeve abruptly exploded into a faint black mist that swiftly shot toward Arbor's location. Black Cat simply sat in a row with those beggars, openly and in high spirits as he watched a good show. What if the soul swap curse could succeed in one strike, ha ha ha. He would secretly take away the eldest Miss Qiao after the soul swap and interrogate her about the talisman art inheritance at that time. That's right. Right now, Black Cat's greatest wish was to pry that complete talisman art inheritance out of Arbor's mouth. No one would believe that a 14 to 15-year-old little girl with superb talisman arts wasn't an inheritance. Black Cat's gloomy eyes flickered as he looked at the carriage. Suddenly, a beggar beside him kicked him heavily. "What are you doing, snatching territory? Do you know first come, first served? This is my territory." The beggar who spoke was in his 50s or 60s. His oily hair was matted into knots that draped over his face and shoulders, covering the red and swollen frostbites on his old face. Frostbites covered his arms and exposed big toes. It could be seen that his daily begging in the wilderness was a miserable and ignoble existence that didn't even know where his next meal would come from. Yet he still dared to throw a tantrum like this. Black Cat had a belly full of anger but nowhere to vent it. If it weren't for the fact that he didn't want to attract attention, he would have strangled this repulsive stinky beggar to death long ago. Shrinking its body and wrapping itself under the hood, the Black Cat sat to the side. It ignored the old beggar and stared at the carriage. He was very nervous. He had to control the location of Miss Qiao's soul immediately after the soul swap. He definitely couldn't let her run away. In the blink of an eye, the soul swap curse that Mu Qianqian threw out had already transformed into a wisp of black light and abruptly arrived in front of Arbor. Mu Qianqian's heart was beating so fast that it was practically about to leap out of her chest. Arbor's hand, which was being held by his mother, suddenly froze. He sat up straight and stared at Prince Mo, who was standing beside the carriage. A trickle of blood suddenly trickled down from the corner of her mouth. It was so sudden that Qiao Zhongbang and his wife were scared out of their wits. "Jojo!" Wei Ziqin exclaimed. "Sister!" Qiao Lin grabbed Arbor's small hand. However, Arbor seemed to have lost all her strength and abruptly fell backward. The back of her head was about to hit a corner of the small coffee table. Mo Lian's gaze contracted, and he swiftly flitted to her side and supported her small head. "Jojo! Sister! Quick! Quickly return to the residence!" Qiao Zhongbang shouted in panic. "Huifeng, quickly summon old royal physician Qiao." "Yes, Your Highness." "Your Highness the Crown Prince," Mu Qianqian fainted behind the carriage. "Throw it further away." Chapter 963. Damn it! Sir Black Cat watched as Prince Mo's two subordinates cruelly tossed Mu Qianqian's unconscious body onto the rundown stall before swaggering off. He hastily and stealthily chased after them, grabbing Mu Qianqian and disappearing into the crowd with a few leaps. However, he was a bit hesitant in his heart. Strange, did she succeed or fail? But if the soul swap failed, the best-case scenario would be vomiting blood and paralysis, while the worst-case scenario would be her soul dispersing and dying on the spot. It didn't look like a failure. Forget it. Let's take Mu Qianqian's body away first. Perhaps eldest Miss Qiao's soul was already inside Mu Qianqian's body. Upon thinking of this, Sir Black Cat couldn't help but burst with joy, as if he could already see himself single-handedly controlling a rare talisman technique inheritance. Not long after he left, that old beggar whose entire body was covered in frostbites and whose head was covered in lice suddenly jumped up from the base of the wall. He looked at his hands one moment, then at his greasy hair draped over his shoulders the next moment, and he shrieked involuntarily. But when he truly heard his own hoarse drake-like voice, it was as if he had been struck by lightning, and his eyes bulged in fright. Old Sly, what's wrong with you?" The other beggars who were leaning against the wall were all startled by his sudden deranged appearance. The crowd of spectators who were concentrating on listening to the competition situation frowned one after another as they glanced at the old beggar who was jumping and shrieking in fright. "Ah! Ah! Ah!" That beggar looked at his hands covered in frostbites in fright, and his lips quivered as if he was having a seizure, his entire body shaking uncontrollably. He touched his hands that were covered in frostbites one moment, then reached out to cup that old face the next. His entire body was convulsing crazily from fright, and even his breathing wasn't smooth. The other beggars on the side snickered, "Old Sly, what are you doing? What are you convulsing for? Idiot! It wasn't me, it wasn't me, it wasn't me, it wasn't me. It wasn't me." The old beggar grabbed a slightly younger beggar next to him, and his lips quivered as he shrieked, "Mirror, mirror. Do you have a mirror? Mirror." The beggar looked at him as if he was crazy. He was so angry that he gave him a kick. "Are you crazy? I am a beggar. Do you think I'm a big girl? Why would I bring a mirror with me?" This kick sent the frail old beggar to the front of a woman. He went up and wanted to hug the woman's leg. The woman was so shocked that she screamed. The husband beside the woman raised his leg and kicked him, causing him to roll back and fall to the ground with a bang. Coincidentally, there was a dog basin by the side with some water in it. He crawled over and took a closer look. He could vaguely make out what it was. Locks of hair stuck to his face as if they had been gnawed by dogs, and his face was old and ugly, covered with frostbite and wrinkles. He was so frightened that he screamed on the spot. "Ah! Ah! Ah! Ah!" The old beggar clawed at the ground and smashed it hard with his frostbite-covered hands. His eyes were filled with disbelief. Ah! He crawled to his feet as if he had gone mad, muttering, "Lord, Lord Black Cat, Lord Black Cat," as he ran madly to look for someone. Why was it like this? Mu Qianqian didn't know. The soul swap curse was a success. Mu Qianqian's soul had now been successfully swapped into the old beggar's body. To raise your hand in fright from the title. Chapter 964. It was a success, the soul swap curse. Mu Qianqian's soul successfully entered the old beggar's body, but this wasn't the success that Mu Qianqian wanted. This kind of successful soul swap didn't have any substantial meaning. Mu Qianqian howled like a madwoman the entire way as she searched for Sir Black Cat's figure all over the streets. Where was Sir Black Cat? He had long thought himself infallible and ran off with Arbor in tow. Since it succeeded, Sir Black Cat naturally had to find a secluded place and slowly interrogate Arbor about the origins and specific circumstances of the talisman art inheritance. Meanwhile, Mu Qianqian was running further and further away. She ran out of the bustling main street and shuttled through various small alleys like a madwoman, screaming, "Sir Black Cat." Ah! Why was it like this? Her hand, her face. Would she be able to change it back? She must find Sir Black Cat, Sir. Ah, she didn't even have extravagant hopes of switching back to the Crown Princess's body now. She only wanted to switch back to her original body. She did not want to become a beggar. No. Ah, thump. Mu Qianqian's head seemed to have bumped into something, and it hurt. She widened her tear-filled eyes as she dazedly gazed at the empty space in front of her. There was nothing at all. Why did it feel like she had bumped into a wall just now? She shuddered her ice-cold and aged body before taking another step forward. Thump. This time, she clearly felt the feeling of being bounced back by a wall-like barrier. Ah! Mu Qianqian shrieked as she abruptly turned around, her eyes widening in horror. "Little bastard, you've got guts. You actually dared to touch my disciple nephew's soul." An angry roar came from the void. Mu Qianqian was horrified to only see a faintly discernible projection in red clothes. She couldn't even see the person's features clearly, but the voice was extremely crisp, like a young woman's voice. Ah! 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 Mu Qianqian shrieked as she turned around, wanting to escape, but she still crashed into the barrier with a thump. She made a gesture to fling a talisman, but then she abruptly realized that this body wasn't her body. Where did she get talismans from? She didn't have talismans. This old beggar was just an ordinary person. Previously, when she forcefully entered the old beggar's body, she directly crushed the old beggar's original soul. Now, even if she used all her strength, she still wouldn't be able to break through the transparent barrier in front of her. Was she going to die? No. She didn't want to die. She didn't want to die. She was still so young. She was only 18 years old. She still had so many years to live. She couldn't die. Sob. No. Mu Qianqian knelt down in terror and despair, kneeling in front of that red projection with a powerful aura. She repeatedly kowtowed and begged for mercy. "Let me go, I beg you to let me go. I won't dare to do it again. I won't dare to do it again." She felt that the person in front of her was very powerful. It was as if he could crush her like an ant with just a stretch of his hand. Her tattered old face was covered with tears and snot, making her look extremely ugly. The projection harumphed coldly and swiftly formed several transparent hand seals. A bizarre energy instantly entered Mu Qianqian's mind. Mu Qianqian only felt as if her soul was being pinched by a giant invisible hand, and her entire body started trembling uncontrollably. Chapter 965. All of a sudden, an indistinct strip-shaped ripple appeared in the still air around them. A segment of transparent playback flashed before the two people continuously, and it passed by extremely quickly. Mu Qianqian gaped in horror as she looked at that transparent image that kept flashing. So scary. So scary. This powerful venerable one in front of her was actually able to extract memory fragments from the depths of her soul. Right now, the playback in front of that mysterious venerable one was precisely the time when she and Sir Black Cat had conspired to use the soul swap curse to harm Arbor. Mu Qianqian only thought that venerable one had used a special imprint to forcibly extract her memories. She didn't know that the other party wasn't squeezing her soul to extract her memories at all. The other party had the power of time and could reverse time even if he was facing the air. She was even more unaware of what kind of fate awaited her. Right now, she could only beg the other party bitterly. Mu Qianqian was extremely terrified. She completely couldn't muster up any thoughts of resistance. She sprawled on the ground like a puddle of mud, and her lips couldn't help but tremble as she shouted, "Venerable One, Venerable One. Venerable One, please forgive me, Venerable One. I beg you, please spare my life. I don't dare anymore, I really don't dare anymore. Venerable One, woo woo woo. Too scary." Why was there such a mysterious venerable one behind Arbor who was her Ant Master? As the red projection pressed closer, a powerful oppressive force closed in on her. It was as if it wanted to crush her entire body into brittle bones. This power caused Mu Qianqian to be unable to breathe as she knelt on the ground with her mouth agape. Scoundrel! It wasn't easy for us to stabilize her soul, but it was damaged by your greed. No, I don't know anything. Venerable One, spare my life, Venerable One, spare my life. Just a projection had such a terrifying aura. Then what if the real person was standing in front of her? Mu Qianqian simply didn't dare to continue thinking. Ha! You actually dared to dream of swapping her soul. You don't have any value left. Die, the projection shouted angrily. A giant invisible hand lifted Mu Qianqian up and flung her heavily onto an ice wall that suddenly rose from the ground. Bam! Mu Qianqian felt like her body was about to split open. The most terrifying thing was that when she turned around, she actually saw her own reflection on the ice wall. Such an ugly old face, with a lock of greasy hair hanging on a face full of frostbites. Was that her? Was it her? Ah! Mu Qianqian shouted as she covered her face. However, she didn't know that her voice had long been blocked inside the 5 walls and couldn't pass through at all. Ha, you must be frightened by your own appearance. Do you want to know what your body will look like in 10, 20, 30 years? This is the result of trying to touch my martial nephew's soul remembrance. The cold voice sounded like a machine. Mu Qianqian looked at that ice wall, and to her horror, she discovered that her face was starting to narrow and thin. The wrinkles on her face became denser, her eye sockets sunk in, and the veins on the back of her hands and legs were bulging. It was as if she had aged 10 years in just a few seconds. She was getting older and older. Her voice was like that of a dying old man, and her turbid eyes were filled with terror as she repeatedly shouted, "No, no." The skin and flesh on her body instantly vanished into nothingness, and her entire body turned into a set of withered bones that fell loosely to the ground. Chapter 966. Tisk, no one can escape the catalysis of the time curse. As the cold voice fell, the illusory projection removed all the barriers in this small alley. The withered bones on the ground had already turned into fine dregs and scattered with the wind. Black Cat. she muttered softly. Just as she was about to move, she seemed to be restrained by something and her figure suddenly stopped. Damned heavenly Tao! You dare to suppress me! An invisible restraint stopped her on the spot for a moment. With a sudden collapse, she quickly broke free of the restraint and the illusory figure spread out into the distance. I'll find that whatever black cat. I'll go back after killing him. Boom! A sudden clap of thunder landed beside the illusory figure. Fuck! I've already endured your attacks on me so many times, but today I can't. Half an incense stick's time. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. Several invisible chains swung onto the illusory figure's body, firmly restraining her on the spot. Must you oppose me? The woman's voice revealed a strong murderous intent. Come back quickly. You can't stay there. Your power of time will cause the spacetime of this lower star domain to become unstable. A crisp voice screeched in exasperation. They touched my martial niece. I beg you. Come back quickly. She's fine. She'll be fine. Who dares to touch her? Whoa whoa. Damn it, stop talking nonsense. The illusory figure instantly disappeared into the air. The two beggars who had followed her poked their heads out of this small alley and looked at each other in dismay. Where's old Sly? I clearly saw him come in just now. Why isn't there anyone here? He's crazy. Forget it, don't bother with him. The Marquis of Jiyuan's estate. Mo Lian sat on the edge of the bed, his straight brows deeply knitted as he gazed at the slightly pale person lying on the bed. Old Imperial Physician Chow, how's the situation? The Crown Princess's pulse is stable and her body is in excellent condition. There's nothing wrong with her. Old Imperial Physician Chow also frowned and stood up. He had carefully checked the Crown Princess's pulse just now, and there was nothing wrong with her. However, the Crown Princess did not wake up. You guys can leave first. Mo Lian ordered indifferently. Yes. After everyone had left and closed the door, Mo Lian moved closer to the bed and reached out to hold Arbor's wrist. An endless stream of medicinal power flowed into Arbor's body. As the seconds ticked by, Mo Lian's forehead was covered in a layer of cold sweat. But his Jojo still did not wake up. Suddenly, as if he had sensed something, he abruptly turned his head, but before he could see clearly who was wrapped up in the black shadow, he had already seen it. A gust of wind from a finger instantly struck him and knocked him unconscious. I almost exposed myself. If the boy hadn't used up too much of his energy, she would have been exposed in front of him. He was a very strong child. The black shadow approached the bed and lifted Arbor with one hand. In an instant, several silver needles appeared and accurately fell on her body. The reason why her soul was so unstable was because of that girl from before. Did junior sister take care of that person? A moment later. Arbor's complexion slightly improved. Her eyelashes fluttered and she looked at the muslin canopy above her head in a daze. Then, as if she felt something, she turned her face to the side. The first thing she saw was Mo Lian, who was half lying in front of her bed. Her heart jumped. Mo. Child. A faint voice sounded by her ear. Chapter 967. A familiar voice, an aura that was still familiar even after 1,000 dreams. Arbor's heart shuddered, and she abruptly turned half of her small face to look at that projection. Master. Arbor struggled, but she felt that she couldn't move her limbs at all. Don't move. That projection floated unhurriedly in front of her and sighed lightly. Just now, someone tried to replace your soul. As she spoke, the newcomer struck out a hand seal, and Mu Qianqian's figure appeared in the air. Do you recognize her? Mu Qianqian. It's her. Arbor's heart was shaken, and her eyes widened slightly. I remember now. Just now, when I was in the carriage, I suddenly felt a shockwave attack my conscience. She was still a bit muddle-headed at the time, so she was caught off guard and injured by this shockwave. At that time, it felt like several large hammers were hammering her brain, and she couldn't help but stare blankly before fainting from the pain. Conscious. The newcomer pondered carefully before nodding in understanding. It is indeed so. Because the other party wanted to touch your soul, she was bound to infiltrate your conscience. However, she didn't know that the golden talisman jade tome in your conscience blocked the majority of the attack for you and even repelled her soul. Then where is Mu Qianqian? Her. She went for wool and came home shorn. After her soul was repelled, it landed in an unfamiliar beggar's body. She had only herself to blame. However, how could she allow such a vicious person to continue harming her beloved disciple to live in this world? Beggar. Arbor's head moved, but she still couldn't raise her limbs. So you're saying that Mu Qianqian became a beggar? This really was the biggest joke in the world. Your Aunt Master has already chased after her. I'm afraid that she has already become a pile of bones by now, the woman said coldly. Master, I know you are my master. But why don't I remember anything? Her heart was unbearably stifled. Xiao Mu really wanted to hit her own head to make it recall. The person's shadowy palm gently brushed her face, and he chuckled softly. Silly child, when your master and your martial uncle sent you back, we sealed most of your power, including your memories. Due to the passage of time and space, some of your memories will be lost. Don't worry, as you grow, you will remember everything. But why did you seal my power? The little guy blinked his eyes and tilted his little face to look at the shadow. Because you're too strong. If I hadn't sealed you back then, the heavenly Tao would never have allowed you to come back. When you leave, the laws will restrict you. Hee hee. Master, your joke is so funny. Cho said that she was very strong, and Master was also saying that she was very strong. Why didn't she know that she was so strong? However, Master sensed that there really are quite a lot of little freaks that ignore the laws in your lower star domain. The shadow's finger moved slightly, and a moon-shaped jade pendant suddenly hung around Arbor's neck. Little treasure, your soul has been unstable since many years ago. Master told you last time that you absolutely cannot pull out the Fushi sword in your current situation. You must be obedient, understand? Master, I'm very obedient. Chapter 968. As soon as the jade pendant was hung around the little fellow's neck, she felt a chill attack her, so cold that she couldn't help but shiver. But very quickly, after that layer of chill peeled off, the moon-shaped jade pendant almost merged with her, instantly becoming warm and comfortable. Although the golden talisman jade tome helped you block it and the soul replacement failed, your soul body still suffered a slight shock. So it's normal for you to feel unwell and weak all over. Rest for a day or two and you'll be fine. This is the soul calming frost jade, the essence that your martial uncle extracted from the heart of the frost jade. It can stabilize your consciousness and help you cultivate and repair your divine sense. Arbor lowered her head to look at the soul-calming frost jade hanging around her neck. Master, can you tell me your name? She kept feeling that her master's and martial uncle's names were at the tip of her tongue, but she couldn't remember them. Master. Whoosh. There seemed to be the sound of iron chains swinging in the air. Arbor slightly widened her eyes. She couldn't see anything, but she could feel that the shadow's arm seemed to be bound by chains. Tian Dao, that's enough. Her precious disciple only wanted to know her name. She had to freaking be restricted. That's too much. Was her name so shameful? Come back quickly. If you don't come back soon, the space-time here will collapse. Oh. If Tiandao could transform now, he would probably go crazy. If rolling on the ground begging for mercy was useful, Tiandao would definitely be paralyzed on the ground and refuse to get up. Master! Master! Arbor struggled with her little hands and feet, trying to climb up from the bed. But when she moved, she felt like her head was being hit by a hammer. It was very painful. Don't move. Master is fine, I just have to go back. That person flicked a small green jade bottle into Arbor's arms. This is a core foundation pill. It can help you consolidate and stabilize your cultivation. Master sees that there's a powerful force in your body that hasn't completely merged, you. Tiandao. I haven't finished speaking yet. Indeed, the earth essence in her body had yet to fully integrate. Arbor anxiously called out, Master, Master, can you tell me how we met? That person's faint laughter slightly rippled in the silent air. The first time I saw you, you were only 7 years old. You were surrounded by countless strong enemies, holding the Fushi sword in your hand. Yes, you were killing people. Tiandao shrieked in a crisp voice, how could you reveal so much about the past to her? Ah! Come back quickly. Time and space will collapse, aw. A crack appeared in the void. Master, Master. The little fellow called out anxiously. The voice slowly faded away. Xiaobao, take good care of yourself. Your Uncle Master and I will only be able to sense it when there are any unusual movements in your soul. Rest well and don't get hurt again. Master. Arbor struggled to move, and his little hand was suddenly grasped by a warm hand. Jojo. Mo Lien looked at her worriedly. Did you have a nightmare again? Arbor looked at him in a daze, and called out somewhat pitifully, Mo Lien, I can't move. This feeling of not being able to control her limbs and being unable to move at all was really terrible. This would make her think of those unbearable past for no reason. Chapter 969. Mo Lien hastily picked her up and patted her back comfortingly. It's fine, it's fine. How do you feel now? Headache. I can't move my entire body except for my neck. The more Arbor spoke, the more she felt that she was rather pitiful. It was all that Mu Qianqian's fault. Why did she have to replace her soul without any rhyme or reason? Mo Lien hugged her with heartache. He circled her limp body and said softly, your conscience seems to have been damaged by an external force for no reason. Just now, I used medicinal power. You used medicinal power to help me. Xiao Mu lifted her head and stared intently at his fatigued face. Did you overuse the medicinal power? No, I know what I'm doing. Mo Lien comforted her. Jojo, do you know what happened? Arbor nodded. It's Mu Qianqian. When she thought up to this point, a thought suddenly flashed through Arbor's mind. She probably used a type of forbidden curse to force my soul out of my body and take over my body. What? Mo Lien was shocked. My master told me. Arbor didn't hide it from him. My master came by just now. Your master. Mo Lien abruptly recalled that he seemed to have sensed a powerful aura flowing inside the room. However, when he turned around to look, he only saw a black fog-like projection before he was knocked unconscious by someone. Just how powerful was Jojo's master? Emichim. Arbor nodded and said anxiously, Mo Lien, look at my neck. There's a moon-shaped jade pendant. Take it off and see if there's anything engraved on it. Mo Lien nodded. Just as he reached out to touch that moon-shaped jade pendant, his fingers shrank back from the chill seeping into his body. What's wrong? Arbor could feel his body tense up. Extremely cold. Mo Lian's hand slowly lit up with a cluster of red flames. She used it to envelop the jade pendant, and only then did she take it. Are there any words on it? Arbor's eyes lit up. There's a name. Mo Lian flipped the moon-shaped jade pendant over, revealing a few small characters on the back. Dark Phoenix. Against the heavens. Arbor seemed to have been hit by something. He was stunned for a moment, and then he shouted excitedly, "Yes, yes. My master is called Dark Phoenix. I remember now. And Martial Uncle Nidian, Martial Uncle Nidian. I remember now." Mo Lian didn't say anything. She just looked at her and reached out to pat her back to help her calm down. However, that was all. When she saw the names, she could recall some of them, but she couldn't remember anything else. However, her master said that as long as she truly matured, she would definitely be able to break the seal, and obtain the missing part of her memories. Mo Lian put that moon-shaped jade pendant back on her neck. This jade is very good. It can help you nourish your conscious. If you wear it to cultivate your spiritual conscious, it might be twice the result with half the effort. Mo Lian. Do you believe in karma? Mo Lian looked at her in a daze. At the same time, he reached out to hug her tightly. His heart also started to fluctuate slightly. I do. As long as it's you who say it, I believe it. He looked at her deeply, then carried her to the bed and tucked her in. Sleep for a while, okay? Xiao Mu responded with a "Amichem." She indeed felt exhausted, a kind of mental exhaustion. Chapter 970. Her master had said that her soul had always been unstable and needed to be nurtured properly. She could not afford to suffer any more damage at this stage. Although she couldn't remember many things now, she already had a strange and accurate speculation in her heart about this. In addition, Chocho had confidently told her that she was reborn because her master and uncle master had used the power of time and space. So in the end, after she died in her previous life, she did not immediately come back to life. Secondly, her soul had probably wandered in a desolate void for a long time. She did not know how long she had wandered in this world. Moreover, she did not know whether that void was hell or not. She could not remember what had happened in there. After that, she must have met her master and uncle master. Until her master and uncle master used the power of time and space to help her come back to life, she had lost all her memories of wandering and how she interacted with her master and uncle master. Actually, after coming back to life, there was no need to delve into the past. But there were some things she really did not want to forget. In addition, after her rebirth, there was one thing she did not dare to think about. It was a knot in her heart that she had always buried deep in her heart. She felt that if she dug out that hazy memory, it would hurt her to death. How did she die in her previous life? She had never thought about it. Arbor only felt her head hurt when she thought about the cause of her death in her previous life. It was as if 10,000 needles were fiercely throbbing in her brain. She was so tired that she could not even lift her eyelids. As she breathed, she smelled a faint calming medicinal fragrance. She did not know when she had fallen into a deep sleep. Seeing her frown, Mo Lian, who did not seem to be asleep with her eyes closed, gave her some medicine. Now that her breathing was slowly stabilizing, he was slightly relieved. Mo Lian sat with her for a while longer. Then, he got up and left Nanju Garden, closing the door behind him. A dark figure appeared beside him. Where is he? This subordinate has temporarily left him in the guest court where no one will go. Your Highness, are you going over now? Aoye whispered. Mo Lian nodded and led Aoye in the direction of the guest court. As soon as she entered the guest garden, Mo Lian quickened her pace and directly pushed open one of the side rooms. There was only a little light in the room. Under the dim light, a man was lying on the cold ground. He looked extremely miserable. His arms and legs revealed part of his white bones. He was lying there gasping for breath. Even his breathing seemed to be very weak. This was the Do family's Do Kuei. Your Highness. Stay Up Late placed a document in Mo Lien's hands. The information was very concise and contained only 2 pages of information. Aoyi whispered to him, according to the Night Pavilion's investigation, this young Master Do has some unknown hobbies. He whispered into His Highness the Crown Prince's ear, and Mo Lien cast an extremely icy gaze at Do Kuei. Mo Lien put down the 2 pieces of information. The only thing she knew was that Do Kuei's parents used to live in a town near Kwoto village and had previously planned to buy Chaolin. Do Kuei's family was only a branch of the capital's Do family. If not for Do Kuei's talent, it would have been very difficult for his parents, who were ordinary people, to enter the capital's Do family. Mo Lien narrowed her eyes and turned to Aoyi. Wake him up. I have a few questions to ask. Yes. Aoyi stepped forward and ruthlessly splashed a basin of salt water on Do Kuei. Chapter 971. Do Kuei's eyes widened in shock, and his entire body trembled. Do you still remember Chaolin, the Crown Princess' younger sister? The Crown Prince asked mildly. Tell me, why did you want to buy the Crown Princess' younger sister back then? How could Do Kuei remember something from so many years ago when the Crown Prince asked? Moreover, he was in a terrible state right now. His breathing was intermittent, as if he would stop breathing at any moment. A cold glint flashed through the Crown Prince's eyes. You won't tell me. Aoyi listened from the side and couldn't help but lower his head, the corners of his mouth twitching. Do Kuei might not remember something that happened 7 or 8 years ago. Then this Crown Prince will turn you into a mechanical puppet. I'll imprison your flesh and even your soul in a mechanical puppet for all eternity. You'll never be able to reincarnate. Such frightening words had obviously stirred up Do Kuei's originally listless spirit. It was definitely because he was frightened. No, don't, he hissed. His voice was clearly blocked by the Crown Prince's defensive barrier. No matter how much he screamed, he couldn't alarm the others in the Chao estate. Then are you going to tell me or not? The Crown Prince asked coldly. Your Highness, Your Highness. Do Kuei sobbed and writhed on the ground like a pitiful worm. I really don't remember, Your Highness. Your Highness. I really don't remember offending the Crown Princess. How could he dare to offend such a demon? If he really did offend her in the past, he was willing to kneel 3 times and kowtow 9 times to apologize to the Crown Princess. You don't remember. The Crown Prince's voice was faintly suppressed with anger. Then do you remember Kwoto village? I remember. Kwoto village is one of the villages near our town. The Do family was the leader of the town back then. They knew very well which villages paid more and which didn't. This Kwoto village was the poorest village. His father had once nagged him about how poor this village was and how there wasn't a bit of profit. Chaolin, the Crown Princess' younger sister. 7 or 8 years ago, your Do family wanted to buy this little girl from Kwoto village to adopt. Do Kuei's eyes widened. Her. It's her. Speaking of Kwoto village, he recalled that there was indeed such a matter back then. However, that family refused to sell their daughter, so the matter was left unsettled. Why did you buy her? Do Kuei stammered and didn't want to say anything. Suddenly, a purple flame fell on his waist and burned. He rolled on the ground in pain, but he couldn't put out the flame. Still not willing to speak. The Crown Prince asked coldly. Speak, I'll speak. I'll talk. Yes, I'm despicable and shameless. Do Kuei said, trembling. I saw that the little girl was cute, and I had thoughts that I shouldn't have. I wanted to buy her and raise her by my side for a few years. The crown prince's eyes darkened. Kill him. Get rid of his parents and family. Yes, Your Highness. No, Your Highness, I've already admitted to everything. If you want me to die, I have nothing to say. But don't blame my family, don't blame my family. Mo Lien tossed him a cold gaze. How could your parents not know about that little hobby of yours? No one in this family was innocent. No. Don't, Your Highness. Your Highness. Chapter 972. Do Kuei turned pale with fright as he watched the man slam the door and leave. He only felt that the flame at his waist seemed to have abruptly given birth to a strange power, and with a whoosh, the flames shot up extremely high. Mo Lien took a deep breath and looked up at the boundless, pitch-black night sky, a pensive look flitting across her eyes. She could tell that Jojo's eyes were brimming with undisguised hatred for this Do Kuei. It was absolute hatred, and she wanted to execute this person by 1,000 cuts. If it was merely the small enmity of Kwoto Village's failed business transaction with Xiao Lin, how could she bear such intense hatred and resentment with this Do family? Her grudge with Do Kuei was limited to that transaction with Xiao Lin. Logically speaking, after the transaction failed, the two families should have no more interactions. In addition, she and Little Six Shang had never met before Bailon City, so where did that inexplicable good feeling come from? Could it be that Duan Yu's crow's beak had really hit the nail on the head, and that it was an old grudge from a past life? What exactly happened in Jojo's past life that she completely didn't want to continue guessing? What was up with his Jojo's past life? Didn't that mean that his Jojo had once died? When she thought of this, Mo Lien felt that her breathing had almost stopped. Under the boundless night sky, Missouri Lien's back was ramrod straight, and her deep phoenix eyes were gazing deeply into the distance. She didn't move in the slightest for a long time. Meanwhile, the Do family had already been turned upside down. The Do family's steward, who had rushed over to report the news, trembled all over as he knelt in front of the Do family's family head, Do Hepping. He stammered, after the Do family's courtyard caught fire, the fire couldn't be extinguished no matter what. After we mobilized people and finally extinguished the fire with great difficulty, we only saw the corpses of Do Kuei's family. Did you make a clear count? Eldest young Sir Do asked coldly. Do Kuei's family had a total of 7 people. Why they've already been burned to ashes. Eldest young Sir Do glanced icily at Steward Do. That means we couldn't make a head count at all. Fingmian, what do you want to say? Do Hepping attached great importance to his eldest son and second son. Whenever there was a problem, he liked to listen to his 2 sons' opinion. Father, I want to say that the fire this time came so suddenly and strangely. I'm afraid that someone set the fire. Lead the way. Do Fenghua stood up and glanced at Steward Do. Steward Do quickly led the way for the second young master, leading the 2 young masters and the Do family's patriarch, Do Hepping, to the Do Kuei family's courtyard, which was blackened by the fire. The disciples surrounding the courtyard were all chased away by housekeeper Do's men. In the end, the dozen or so servants went through the courtyard and only found 6 half-human and half-lesbian corpses. Do Fenghua sighed and said, Father, let's just let this matter pass. We'll hold the funeral tomorrow and just say it was an accident. Fenghua. Do Fenghua took out a thin piece of paper from her sleeve and handed it to her father and elder brother. You just offended the crown princess this morning, and now you're sending someone to silence me at night. Do Hepping was suddenly furious. What's more, I don't know if what's written on the paper is true or false. Could it be that just because Do Kuei once tried to taint the crown princess's younger sister, he can treat human lives like grass? Do Kuei was considered an extremely talented member of the Do family's younger generation, so Do Heping couldn't swallow the resentment in his heart. Father, you have to swallow it even if you can't. Do Fenghua said indifferently. If you want the Do family to be well, then draw a clear line between you and Do Kuei's family from now on. After saying this, she swaggered off. Chapter 973. Do Heping glanced at Do Fengmian. Fengmian, what do you think? Do Fengmian nodded. Second brother's analysis is correct. For our Do clan, we have to swallow this anger for the time being. If my guess is correct, it wasn't the crown princess who did it. No matter how one looked at it, it was definitely that person who had made such a swift, incisive, and unpredictable move. Seeing that his two sons had the same attitude, Do Heping could only sigh helplessly and nod. Right now, the most important thing is Fengqi's preparation for the Mystic Beast Forest's secret realm. Do Heping nodded. That's right. It's a pity that Yao was eliminated. I originally thought that the two sisters could still travel together. Do Fengmian said indifferently, that's not bad. Look at the Mu clan. They originally had lofty aspirations of obtaining 2 spots, but in the end, they didn't obtain a single one. The Talisman patrician family's failure this time simply made them the laughingstock of the entire capital. Do Heping revealed a faint smile when he heard this. That's right. Apart from the Wu clan, which was originally slightly weaker, this time, the Mu clan, the head of the 8 great patrician families, also joined the ranks of the losers. This was very surprising. The other 6 patrician families each had one person who won, so it could be considered a tie. In the Qin Estate's Crane Garden, young Master Omega Kotoku supported his chin with his hand and tilted his head slightly as he casually wrote and drew on a piece of paper. A delicate and pretty woman dressed in black stood silently in front of the desk with her head bowed. She wore a short jacket with arrow sleeves, and her long hair was neatly tied up tightly, revealing her high hairline. On this trip to the Mystic Beast Forest's secret realm, the first thing to search for is a 10,000-year-old Xuanji core. You should already be clear. Yes. Qin Susu nodded crisply. She participated in the selection as the eldest and second young master's foster sister. In reality, she was a hidden guard that the second young master had nurtured for many years. She was very clear about her position and what she needed to do. She only needed to act according to the second young master's orders and had no other thoughts. Also, Omega Kotoku put down the brush in his hand and indifferently swept a glance over Qin Susu. You must ensure Miss Chiao's safety on this trip. If necessary, you must protect her with your life. Qin Susu was stunned for a moment, then nodded, yes, subordinate obeys. Then, he carefully glanced at Omega Kotoku. Omega Kotoku asked coldly, what other questions do you have? If Miss Chiao also wishes to obtain the Xuanji core, what should I do? Qin Susu pursed her lips, a serious look on her delicate face. Omega Kotoku suddenly smiled, a trace of dark green flowing in the depths of her eyes, and there was a faint warmth between her brows. If she wants it, then give it to her. It's just a Xuanji core. Qin Susu was stunned. Wasn't second young master spoiling her too much? Then may I ask, what is the point of this subordinate risking his life for? Was it to help Miss Chiao obtain the Xuanji core? Second young master left the desk and walked out the door, leaving Qin Susu standing in front of the desk in a daze for a long time. A piece of ink paper floated down from the table and landed softly at Qin Susu's feet. Qin Susu looked down. The paper was filled with the word Chiao, written clearly and forcefully on the back of the paper. Chin Susu pursed her lips. She was only a hidden guard. She would definitely complete her master's orders, even if it meant risking her life. Omega Kotoku walked out of the room and stroked the large crane that was strolling leisurely in the garden with a deep look in his eyes. Chapter 974. The patriarch of the Mu family, Mu Boming, was about to explode from anger. They had entered the selection competition full of confidence, but in the end, their Mu family didn't even get a single spot. In addition, Madame Mu had been weeping endlessly next to him, saying that something must have happened to her daughter since she hadn't returned yet. She nagged him to send people to search for her non-stop, which made him extremely vexed for no reason. "Master, Madam." A servant hurriedly came to report, "Miss has returned." "Ah, my Qian has returned." Madame Mu promptly jumped up from her chair with joy on her face. Mu Boming glared at Madame Mu in displeasure. "You're the only one who's freaking out all day. What could have happened to Qian? She must have gone to cause trouble again." Madame Mu ignored him and walked over to welcome her daughter. However, when she saw Mu Qian being carried in with a ghastly pale face, she immediately cried out in alarm. "Qian! My daughter!" Madame Mu pounced over to hug her daughter and howled, "Who exactly caused you to become like this?" Mu Boming was also slightly alarmed, and he turned around to berate that servant. "What exactly happened?" "Master, this lowly one also doesn't know. Eldest Miss was thrown at the side door, and no one knows who sent Eldest Miss back. Qian, our daughter." Madame Mu bawled as she wiped her tears. "Master, quickly think of a way to save our daughter." Mu Boming's expression was very unsightly, and he turned around to roar at that servant. "What are you all still standing there for? Hurry and invite the capital's most famous physician to the estate to take Eldest Miss's pulse." After the Mu family bustled about in a flurry of activity, Mu Boming was informed by several elderly physicians that his daughter Mu Qian had contracted a very rare soul loss illness and would probably never wake up again in this lifetime. Late at night, a short and small figure appeared on the wall of the outer courtyard of the Marquis of Jiayuan's estate. This person was precisely Sir Black Cat, who had quietly left after throwing Mu Qian's abandoned body at the entrance of the Mu family's estate. After he left with Arbor, in his conceit, he found a remote place, but he couldn't wake Mu Qian up no matter what. She tried all kinds of methods and used everything she could think of, even using fire and stabbing, but in the end, Mu Qian was still as motionless as a corpse. Lord Black Cat then realized that something might have gone wrong during the soul-swapping process. This was what caused Mu Qian's body to enter a soul estate, so she could be considered a completely useless trash. Therefore, Black Cat wanted to take advantage of the night to come to the Marquis of Jiayuan's estate to take a look at Miss Zhao's situation. Unfortunately, his front foot had just leaped onto the wall when his back foot was almost struck by a sudden burst of profound energy. An ambush. What a good black cat. It bent its waist in midair and then landed steadily on the ground covered with small pebbles in the courtyard. When he saw clearly who was in front of him, his pupils could not help but shrink slightly. "Paw, paw, paw." Mo Lien clapped her hands with a faint smile. The corners of her lips curled up slightly as she slowly walked over from under the shade of the tree. Her pair of phoenix eyes appeared especially bright under the illumination of the night stars. "I guessed that someone would come, but I didn't expect it to be you." Mo Lien sneered at him. "You are that clown from the Luo family troupe, right? Why do you have to hide your head and show your tail?" Black Cat was truly startled by His Highness the Crown Prince acting like this. In his impression, he had only seen His Highness the Crown Prince from afar on the day they entered the palace. Chapter 975. After that, although he and the Luo family troupe were arranged to stay in the palace, only the concubines came to watch the opera. He had never seen the crown prince. In other words, the crown prince recognized his identity with just one glance when he entered the palace. What kind of terrifying eyesight was this? When he entered the palace, he was a short clown hiding in the crowd. He was inconspicuous. Even so, the crown prince's eyesight was so accurate. Lord Black Cat's pupils constricted again, and he stepped back. The crown prince's lips curled into a cold smile. Suddenly, Lord Black Cat moved. He threw out a shining talisman in each hand. This was the most basic offensive talisman in the forbidden talisman arts. It drew on the yin energy between heaven and earth. Once it entered a person's body, it could cause extensive damage. Lord Black Cat was using a mid-level shining talisman. If Arbor was here, he could use a high-level defensive talisman to block it. Yet at this time, Mo Lien didn't even look at Black Cat. Purple flames ignited in his hand, and he directly burned the two mystic yin talismans. Yin energy could not withstand fire spirits. Moreover, Mo Lien's purple flame spirit was a 9th-level spiritual fire. It could ignore all other fire spirits except for the holy flame. The two Xian Yin talismans struggled to break free from the raging fire, and then were burned to ashes. Lord Black Cat's pupils constricted, and he immediately turned to flee. However, as soon as he moved, countless arrows shot at him from the top of the wall, causing him to fly back. Stay Up Late waved his hand, and a row of people stood up from the wall. They were all waiting for Lord Black Cat. A talisman master, Mo Lien said calmly. "Tell me, how should I deal with you?" "Damn it." Lord Black Cat gritted his teeth, and suddenly threw out a dozen shining talismans from his sleeves. He charged at Stay Up Late and the others. "Disperse," Mo Lien said coldly. Stay Up Late and the others were not stupid. Seeing so many talismans coming at them, they quickly jumped down from the wall. Bam, bam, bam. The talismans cracked in the air, and a cold aura came at them. Mo Lien swiftly leaped onto the top of the wall and formed several complicated hand seals that resembled the shape of a lotus with lightning speed that left no time for covering one's ears. A few black lotuses suddenly appeared, and were thrown in front of Lord Black Cat. Lord Black Cat growled, and quickly retreated. He covered his face with his sleeves, and his body was full of energy for defense. Suddenly, boom! Boom! A burst of explosive sounds rang out, and the wall was directly torn into pieces by this force. Lord Black Cat's broken body, along with the wall, fell heavily to the ground. Cough, cough, cough. Black Cat coughed out a few mouthfuls of blood in horror. It turned its head in disbelief to look at the tall and slender figure of the Crown Prince, who remained silent. How? His Highness the Crown Prince had defeated him in one move. He could be considered one of the top charm masters, but when he met His Highness the Crown Prince, he didn't even have the slightest ability to fight back. How could youngsters nowadays be so terrifying? How could he endure this? Cough, cough. Lord Black Cat could not stop coughing. Mo Lien gave a look, and Stay Up Late and the others immediately jumped forward. They lifted Lord Black Cat from the ground, and forced him to kneel in front of him. You look a bit familiar to me. Mo Lien remarked dryly. Chapter 976. Swoosh. Aoye understood tacitly and stepped forward to pull off the black hat on Sir Black Cat's head. While he was at it, he grabbed her hair and lifted her face up. Mo Lien's eyes flickered as she looked at his face and smiled coldly. No wonder you look so familiar. You must be the brother of the snake-driving dwarf. That's right. If Arbor was here, she would definitely realize that Sir Black Cat's face was exactly the same as the two dwarves who attacked her. The eldest of the three dwarf brothers was this Sir Black Cat who was adept at using charms. He was Shuntian Prefecture's Luigi's lackey. Mo Lien narrowed her eyes and nodded at Aoye. Aoye's hand chopped down cleanly and knocked Sir Black Cat unconscious. Interrogate him properly. This time, we must interrogate Luigi's whereabouts. Mo Lien curled her lips and sneered. We have no interest in playing cat and mouse games with him anymore. Yes, Your Highness. Aoye knew that His Highness the Crown Prince was in a very bad mood, so he hurriedly shrunk his neck and agreed. I'll mend this wall later. Mo Lien turned around and walked briskly into the courtyard. The next morning, Arbor lay on the bed, feeling no different from a paralyzed patient. She could move her arms and legs slightly, but she still didn't have the strength to get up from the bed. Wei Ziqin, Qiao Zhongbang, Qiao Lin, and the others came to check on her anxiously. After being comforted by her, they left Nanzhu Garden with some relief. At noon, she finally felt hungry. The Crown Prince lifted her up and fed her half a bowl of porridge. How are you feeling? Mo Lien reached out to touch her forehead and whispered, Are you feeling better? I don't have any strength. Qiao Mu tilted her head dejectedly. Will I always be a good-for-nothing? Mo Lien couldn't help but laugh. How is that possible? Your soul is shaken, so it will definitely affect your body. I'm sure he'll recover in 2 days. That may be the case, but aren't we about to go to the Mystic Beast Forest secret realm? It's still early. We still have 10 days. It won't be too late to go there then. Speaking of this, Mo Lien couldn't help but glance at her worriedly. Jojo, I can only escort you to the entrance of the Mystic Beast Forest secret realm. I can't accompany you into the secret realm. Of course. Arbor said with a nod. Qiao Dongbui had previously said that if anyone above the age of 20 tried to force their way into the Mystic Beast Forest secret realm, they would be mercilessly exterminated at the entrance. Therefore, this arcane realm had an age limit. Although she didn't know how it determined this, she certainly didn't want Mo Lien to take the risk. Then I won't be able to see you for a month, Mo Lien said unhappily. The mystic realm could only be opened once every 10 years. Each time it opened, it would be open for a month. Within a month, the mystic realm would not open again. Of course, if one couldn't leave the mystic realm after a month, then there was a possibility that they would stay there forever. You must remember to come out once the 1-month deadline is up. You mustn't be greedy and act rashly, got it? Mo Lien suddenly thought of this and hastily said to her. Don't worry, I'm not stupid. Arbor puffed up her cheeks, thinking that she was just going in to take a look. Most importantly, she wanted to take the opportunity to make a trip to the Mystic Beast Forest and gather some Mystic Beast cores for the little white squirrel to nourish its body. Chapter 977. Previously, Mo Lien had Morning Sunlight Pavilion's people gather a batch of Mystic Beast cores and feed them to the little white squirrel. Sure enough, it was greatly beneficial to its body. At this time, the little fat squirrel was a lot fatter than before, and its big tail was also longer. She reckoned that if she fed it more Mystic Beast cores, it should wake up. Thinking of this, Arbor's mood couldn't help but improve. The two of them talked for a while with their heads together. In the afternoon, people from the palace came to invite Mo Lien back. Xiao Yao stayed by the bedside to look after Arbor. Arbor's spirit was a bit weak, so she slept. When she woke up, it was already 10 minutes into the night. Arbor felt a bit dizzy in her daze. She got up and ate 2 mouthfuls of food before lying down to sleep again. She didn't know that when she fell asleep, the moon-shaped jade pendant on her neck had been emitting a faint light. These 2 days, Arbor had been eating and sleeping, switching between half awake and half asleep. After 2 full days, she finally felt that her head didn't hurt as much anymore, and her spirit also recovered a bit. When she got up early in the morning, she gave Xiao Yao a big fright. "Miss, why are you up? I've been lying down for 2 days. It's time to get up and move around." Arbor sighed and carelessly wiped her little face before throwing the handkerchief into the basin. "That's true." Xiao Yao nodded and said, "Miss can finally get up and move around. I'll go tell Master and Madam this good news." "Go ahead." Arbor nodded. "Oh, have someone prepare the carriage. I want to go out and take a breather." She was almost bored to death at home. Now that she was in the carriage, she specially had Xiao Yao hang up the windows and curtains a bit so that she could breathe in the cold wind outside. "Miss, it's cold outside today. Will you catch a cold?" Xiao Yao nervously draped a fur coat over her. Arbor could not help but laugh. She knew her own body better than anyone else. There was no problem at all. It was just that her soul had been touched and she was mentally exhausted. However, after a day or 2 of repairs, it would probably be completely healed. These 2 days, our Guanlan city hasn't been peaceful. Xiao Yao pursed her lips. Rats and ants can be seen everywhere on the streets, and they're all very big. They all said that there was a problem with the Nimpan Tower of the Honghai Temple. I don't know who started this rumor, but it said that a demon has appeared and a calamity has descended from the heavens. These days, His Highness the Crown Prince has been busy dealing with the rumors in Jingdo. Xiao Yao turned her head and looked at Arbor with a smile. "Are you going to the palace to see His Highness?" Arbor was startled and then shook his head indifferently. "I just wanted to come out and take a breather." "Oh." It was only then that Xiao Yao clearly saw a hint of disgust flash past the Crown Prince Consort's eyes. This was disgust for the palace. Sigh. Xiao Yao let out a long sigh. It seemed that after the Lantern Festival incident, it would be difficult to make the Crown Princess willingly enter the palace. "Right, that Taoist priest Dayu?" Arbor asked with a frown. "Did you find him?" She felt that this person was a bit strange, as if he harbored great enmity towards her. However, she did not know him at all. "We've searched the entire city, but we couldn't find him. I'm afraid he escaped." Peony frowned as well. His Highness the Crown Prince had sent many people to investigate. Chapter 978. Even so, that old Taoist was still able to slip away. It was evident that his methods were exceedingly formidable and unrivaled. Arbor nodded in response. Recalling Priest Dayu's mocking gaze, she couldn't help but secretly clench her fists. There was definitely something strange about this person. The 2 of them sat in the carriage and casually strolled around the city. During this time, Arbor indeed saw many fat rats appear in the city. They wantonly scurried through the streets, causing the pedestrians to shriek in fright. "Miss, it's those fat rats. They look really disgusting." Xiao Yao grabbed the carriage curtain and turned to glance at her. A strange glint flashed through Arbor's eyes. She nodded and said, "Amen, it's about time to breathe. Let's go back. A sorcerer has come into being. A calamity descending from the heavens." That it wasn't that she was sensitive, but she felt that there was a hint of a conspiracy behind this. However, she wanted to see how such a huge accusation would be planted on her head if she wasn't in the capital. The next day, His Highness the Crown Prince, who was discussing politics in the Eastern Palace's small study, received a report from a subordinate. "Your Highness, it's bad." The Crown Princess packed her things and ran away. "What?" Mo Lien immediately tossed away the brush in her hand and jumped up from her chair. Huifeng swept a glance at Hidden Flower, who came to report. Was it his imagination? Why did he feel that Hidden Flower had an impudent smile in his eyes? Wasn't he afraid that the Crown Prince would destroy him with a single hand with his ghastly expression of schadenfreude? What exactly happened? Hurry and speak. Mo Lien was both shocked and surprised. Last night, he even went to the Qiao estate to see his little emperor darling. He was very happy to see that she could get out of bed and walk around safely. Why did she run away today? This subordinate doesn't know. Hidden Flower chuckled as his body swayed. He covered his mouth and said, "Perhaps the Crown Princess wanted to give you a surprise." What a pleasant surprise. Hui Feng rolled his eyes at him before retracting his gaze. He cupped his fists and bowed to Crown Prince Lien. "Your Highness, this subordinate is willing to immediately go and chase the Crown Princess back." Hidden Flower pursed his lips when he heard this. "Come on. The Crown Princess is riding on Qing Yuan. How are you going to chase after her? You think you can outrun Qing Yuan with your 2 legs? Ha! Mo Lien hurriedly walked out. Where did she go? Your Highness, don't be anxious." Hidden Flower appeared in front of the Crown Prince in a flash and took out a letter from his sleeve. "The Crown Princess left a letter for you." Mo Lien hurriedly took the letter and opened it. "Mo Lien, I'll bring the little monk back to Hulun Mountain. We'll be back in 3 days. Don't worry." Mo Lien was stunned for a moment, but she still walked out of the study. Hidden Flower hurriedly said, Your Highness, are you really going? The Crown Princess said that you've been busy with government affairs and asked you to focus on them. Who would be in the mood to deal with political affairs? His wife had run away. What the hell was he supposed to deal with? As he spoke, Gong Chang and ran over in small steps, panting as he shouted, Your Highness, the Great King has summoned you. Her Majesty the Empress Dowager and the 12th Prince have returned. Your Highness, don't worry. Lightning and the others have already followed the Crown Princess. Even though they might not be able to catch up. At this moment, our dear Qiao Mu, who had packed her bags and ran away, had already flown to Quoto village on Qingyuan. In his arms, he was also hugging the bald little monk, Kong Kong. Benefactress, where are we going? Chapter 979. Arbor sat cross-legged inside the defensive barrier, flipping through the parchment map in her hands. Kong Kong, your Buddhist hand seals are not bad. Hearing that, the little monk immediately patted his chest with his claws. Of course, this is a compulsory course for this little monk. Blue Wan, we're almost there. Let's go down. Okay, Master. Blue Wan immediately flapped her wings and slowly descended. That day, she had obtained a parchment map from the old monk of Shadow Moon Temple. With just one glance, she could clearly recognize that the location marked on the land of heritage was Quoto Village's Hulun Mountain. Wasn't it very surprising? She had not expected that after leaving the village for so many years, she would actually return once again. And according to the location marked on the map, this land of heritage was actually it was in the vicinity of the stone forest where she had first found the paradise. This was really too much of a coincidence. A faint trace of doubt flashed through Arbor's heart. After jumping down from Blue Wan's back, Blue Wan immediately transformed into human form. She had the appearance of a handsome youth of 17 or 18 years old. Her features were very outstanding, but her green robes were a little tight on her body. Da Qing, you seem to have grown a little taller. Arbor reached out to compare their heights. When Blue Wan had first transformed into human form, she had only been 13 or 14 years old. In this half a month, she had grown a little too much. As master, it was time for her to buy some clothes for her subordinates, so that they would not be so tight when they went out. It would be a little funny. Master, while absorbing the essence earth, I also benefited a lot. Blue One hurriedly nodded. Benefactress, carry me. The little monk dragged his feet and suddenly reached out to tug at the corner of Arbor's clothes. Scared. Arbor reached out and picked him up, carrying him in her arms as they continued forward. The Quoto village in front of them was now a pile of ruins. After 7 to 8 years of wind and rain, the originally half-built mud houses had now collapsed. Xiao Mu stepped on the pile of dust and rubble as she slowly walked, paying attention to her surroundings as she walked. The little monk abruptly formed a Buddhist seal with his chubby fingers before smacking Xiao Mu's forehead with a smack. Arbor. Benefactress, there are quite a few ghost spirits here. Did you feel unwell just now? The corner of Arbor's mouth twitched as he shook his head. No. Why did this brat feel like he was a fraud? The little monk shook his head and muttered to himself, Benefactress, you are indeed a unique weirdo in this world. Then take a look again. Do you see anything? Just now, he had used the Buddha seal to open her eyes. For the time being, she could see some drifting ghosts. She should avoid them as much as possible. It was not good to be contaminated with yin qi. No. Arbor shook her head. She only saw the ruins. Arbor pinched his chubby cheeks and asked curiously, are there really ghosts in this world? Not ghosts, but ghost spirits. The little monk puffed up his chubby cheeks and said in a childish voice, since there are immortal spirits in this world, there are naturally ghost spirits. Aren't you great talisman masters able to make deity-inviting talismans and invite immortal spirits to possess you? Arbor silently shut her little mouth. She had never heard of deity-inviting talismans. This brat actually knew quite a lot. In the past, after finishing my evening classes, Master would tell me some anecdotes before going to bed. Benefactress, you have to read more books. Chapter 980. Arbor didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Was she being looked down on by a little ghost? What else did Great Master Kong Yin say? Master said that ghost spirits are the convergence of resentment and are born with the power of evil. Oh, there was once a talisman master who wantonly killed villagers and deliberately created ghost spirits to practice a forbidden technique called the Dark Yin Talisman. Arbor nodded in understanding. I understand. I haven't learned the God-inviting talisman yet. Then it's no wonder you're ignorant and inexperienced. The little monk sighed, pretending to be an old man. Arbor's mouth twitched. She raised a hand and rubbed his little bald head. Speak properly, don't be so sarcastic. Benefactress, you really can't see the ghost spirits. The little monk casually pointed in front of them. I can't see them. It was quite strange that Arbor couldn't see the ghost spirits. After all, the little monk had opened his eyes for her. These ghost spirits probably didn't look too beautiful, so it didn't matter whether she could see them or not. As the two spoke, they heard rustling sounds coming from the ruins in front of them. Suddenly, an ugly one-legged, one-armed corpse hag jumped out. Its skin and flesh had rotted away, making it look like a moving skeleton. Wah! The little monk reflexively reached out and wrapped his arms tightly around Arbor's neck. In the next moment, Arbor raised her arm and shot a crow-gold arrow at the skeletal corpse puppet, sending it flying and landing heavily on the ground. She had naturally killed it with a headshot. That corpse puppet definitely wouldn't be able to get up again. Arbor put down her crow-repeating crossbow and stared at the corpse puppet in a daze. After so many years, she couldn't recognize who this person was at all. Or perhaps, even if she recognized him, she would still shoot him to death. Arbor pursed her lips and didn't say anything else. She observed her surroundings again. Seeing that there were no other strange movements, she stepped forward. After so many years, the villagers of the nearby Wei family village, which was close to Quoto village, had probably either died or fled. Most of the zombies had also left this barren area to hunt for food. Benefactress, you used to live here. The little monk hugged her neck and asked softly, are you in a bad mood? Okay, stop talking. Arbor carried the child and walked quickly towards Holland Mountain. Along the way, they could see how tragic Quoto village was at that time. Most of the villagers should have escaped. Those whose bodies were torn apart didn't turn into corpse puppets, but because their resentment didn't dissipate, they became the ghost spirits that the little monk spoke of. If my senior Marshall brothers didn't go out to travel, they could help the villagers here release their souls from purgatory, the small monk muttered. Chiao Mu didn't pay him any more attention as she carried him and walked towards Holland Mountain with Qinghuan. Although she hadn't returned for many years, she still remembered some of the paths. Arbor took a shortcut all the way to the stone forest and looked around. Did you find anything? The little monk shook his head. Shouldn't I use the startled swan dagger to open this land of heritage first? Arbor muttered to herself. The startled swan dagger suddenly flew out of her conscious and circled above her head. Suddenly, a blue figure glided through the air and reached out a huge palm to grab the startled swan dagger. You're courting death. Arbor's eyes flickered, and she threw out several hidden weapons. The dark wind attacked, and the huge palm suddenly shrank back. Arbor's eyes were cold as she stared. Chapter 981. It's you. Arbor looked at the old Daoist in cyan and sneered. Actually, the Daoist priest in front of her was only about 40 years old, but he gave off an aged aura. Arbor was very clear that this Daoist priest's actual age was definitely not as young as he looked at this moment. He might even be close to 100 years old. Moreover, she had previously fought with this person in the palace, so she was very clear about his strength. She didn't expect that the stinky Daoist priest that she couldn't find in the city would actually appear in Quoto village. Although Arbor was baffled, she reacted extremely quickly. Without waiting for the old Daoist priest to retreat, she took advantage of him, the ferrule in her hand gliding with an ink-colored light, heading straight for the old Daoist priest's neck. A line of fire suddenly shot toward the old Daoist priest. Qinghuan raised her sword and sent out an icy wind, stabbing over as well. However, it was blocked halfway by an eagle-faced ferocious beast. The eagle-faced ferocious beast was very ugly. It was born with 2 pairs of wings, one long and one short. The short pair of wings were like crippled wings that hadn't fully developed, and they were very ugly when curled up in front of its chest. When Qinghuan saw this eagle-faced ferocious beast, she didn't even blink as she directly drew out several ice blades and attacked the eagle-faced ferocious beast. At the same time, the startled swan dagger suspended in midair flashed in the air and suddenly released a dazzling light. In front of it, in the originally empty broken stone forest, 4 sealed transparent barriers suddenly appeared. The little monk hurriedly rushed forward and struck out 4 to 5 seals around the barriers. Then, he turned his head and blasted out a flame attack while calling out cutely, "Benefactress, quickly come in." In order to dodge the flame attack, the old Daoist priest twisted his body slightly and dodged. Arbor took this opportunity to quickly rush into the transparent barrier. How could the old Daoist priest let her escape? A huge jet-black claw darted out of his chest and grabbed at Arbor's shoulder. Slap! In a moment of desperation, Arbor pulled out a green vine and whipped it directly at that huge claw. The old Daoist priest was caught off guard and just happened to be hit. His claw retracted in pain, and Arbor took the opportunity to run forward a few steps, heading straight for the transparent barrier. "Where do you think you're going?" The old Daoist snorted angrily and sneered, "I really underestimated you." He had a lot of secrets. Not only could he draw high-leveled summoning talismans, but he also had the power of the wood spirit. Hee hee. Watch this old man catch you. Boom. The entire mountain trembled violently 3 times in a terrifying tremor. Even the damned old Taoist, who was still chattering, was thrown back 3 or 4 steps by this huge shock. He spat out a mouthful of blood. Damned girl! The old Taoist shouted angrily. When he caught this cunning girl, he would definitely dismember her body to vent the hatred in his heart. What Arbor tossed out was none other than the core-ravaging thunder that Duan Yu gave him. It was enough to give the old geezer a hard time. Seeing him quickly retreat, if he didn't leave now, when would he? Arbor immediately drilled into the transparent barrier. Qingyuan also got rid of the eagle-faced beast's entanglement and rushed into the transparent barrier. The little monk immediately formed several Buddhist hand seals and sealed the passage. The 3 people's figures instantly disappeared inside. The old Taoist priest wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth and fiercely turned his head. He watched helplessly as the 3 people fled like rabbits. He immediately roared angrily at the sky, Arbor. This damn girl, let's see where she can escape to. He didn't expect that the damn girl would grow to this extent after being left alone. It was simply abominable. Chapter 982. When the 3 figures reappeared, they were already in a small and quiet bamboo forest. This land of heritage wasn't big. Behind the bamboo forest were 3 small thatched cottages. There was only a shallow stream flowing in front of the door. It really looked like a secluded place. Secluded, tranquil, and light. The moment Arbor entered this place, she took a deep breath. She only felt that her heart was filled with a sense of peace. No matter how much fighting and killing was going on outside, it had nothing to do with this place. Benefactress, what should we do next? There was a faint trace of worry between the little monk's brows. Arbor glanced at him and immediately reached out to rub his little face. You're so young, but you look so mature. If there's anything, big sister will be here. What's the rush? Let's go see this senior first. After saying that, she pulled the round-headed little monk with one hand and walked into the small bamboo forest. They came to the door of the 3 small thatched cottages. Pushing open the master bedroom in the middle, a faint pill fragrance wafted out. Arbor's figure suddenly froze. She stared blankly at the skeleton on the bed, slightly dazed. The skeleton was covered in a layer of bright red robes. Its sitting posture was extremely upright. For a moment, Arbor seemed to see the woman in red who had swept through an army of 10,000 people single-handedly in the past. Benefactress. The little monk reached out to shake her clothes. Arbor came back to her senses. She lowered her head and looked at Kong Kong blankly. What's wrong? Arbor shook her head. She subconsciously pressed a hand to her chest. Why did she suddenly feel like she couldn't breathe? It was as if there was an invisible claw tightly grasping her heart. For a moment, she couldn't speak. It was as if in that moment, the sorrow in her heart was indescribable. It was as if she wanted to vent it through crying. Her eyes suddenly reddened. But why did she suddenly want to cry? You look so sad, benefactress. The little monk reached out to hug her leg and rubbed against it. Carry me. Arbor was still in a daze, but he did as he was told and picked up the little baldy. The little monk reached out and hugged her neck. He stretched out a small hand and placed it on her face. He said in all seriousness, "Don't cry. This little monk can't bear to see women cry." The mournful and sorrowful atmosphere was almost blown away by the little monk's words. Qingyuan watched from the side and rolled her eyes speechlessly. Do you feel better? The little monk's palm had an endless amount of heat. Therefore, when it touched her small, bone-chilling face, it gave her a sense of warmth. This senior should have died many years ago. The small monk turned his head and looked at the bed. Look at her. Her expression is serene and there's even a hint of a smile on her face. She must have known that her life was coming to an end. Qing Yuan wanted to ridicule little Baldy. Where did you get your eyes from? Looking at this skeleton with such a serene expression. Everyone will reach this step, unless you can jump out of the heavens will and ignore the heavenly Tao. Benefactress, don't be sad. The little monk comforted her in a childish voice. Let's go up and see what kind of good inheritance this senior left for you. Since senior opened the cave and let us in, she must have left something for you. Qing Yuan nodded. Master, don't be sad. Let's go and take a look. Arbor's eyes reddened. Actually, she also couldn't understand herself. It wasn't the first time she faced death. Why would her emotions fluctuate? Chapter 983. Indeed, after so many years, hadn't she already seen too much life and death? Why did she have such a change in her emotions when facing a stranger? She put down the little monk and walked forward. She picked up a yellowed letter placed beside the skeleton and opened it. Arbor read it line by line. My disciple, Master doesn't know your name, so I'll call you this for now. You being able to step into this secret inheritance realm is a fortuitous opportunity. It's the fate of Master and disciple that we have. If you want to inherit my mantle, kneel down and kowtow 3 times to Master. Arbor immediately put down the letter and knelt in front of the skeleton. Her eyes reddened slightly as she lowered her head and kowtowed 3 times to this senior extremely respectfully. She then picked up the letter and continued reading. Master's name is Long Chuyun. I'm an experienced pill refiner. You don't need to know who I am. Take away the space ring on Master's left hand. Inside is the inheritance that Master left for you. In addition, in the pill room on the left, there are pills that Master has refined for many years. In the grass hut on the right, there are medicinal herbs that Master has nurtured for many years. Take all of them. Master doesn't have any more requests for you. Master only hopes that you can treat merfolk well on account of our relationship as master and disciple. The letter stopped here. As expected, Master didn't have any requests for her. Master only hoped that she could treat merfolk well when she encountered them in the future. But this wasn't a request at all. Arbor only felt stuffy. There were too many doubts and things that he wanted to know. For example, why was Master hunted down by Shantian Prefecture back then, and why did she die in this secret realm? He almost couldn't suppress the sorrow in his heart again. Long Chuyun didn't insist that the disciple take revenge on behalf of the master like other people did. She didn't mention the name of her enemy at all. She didn't even mention Shantian Prefecture. When she took off the lustrous white ring on Long Chuyun's skeleton and held it in her hand, she seemed to be able to feel a faint energy fluctuation. Space rings basically couldn't be seen in the lower star domain. Everyone knew that mystic cultivators had inner worlds, but it was another matter whether they could open one or not. Other than that, if he wanted to store things conveniently, he could only rely on the storage cabinets created by artificers. Storage cabinets were placed in various large cities to facilitate the storage of items. Naturally, a certain amount of profound stones was required as storage fees. Moreover, a small storage space usually required a lot of magnetite. Therefore, people who weren't especially rich wouldn't do something so extravagant. Don't even think about those villages and towns, they don't even have lockers. Therefore, this storage cabinet was expensive and inconvenient to use. As for the storage talismans made by Arbor, they were hard to come by even on the black market. Naturally, he wouldn't even think about it. A spatial ring was something that most people in the lower star domain had never heard of. It could be seen that her teacher's identity was very special. Unfortunately, she didn't say anything, so Arbor could only put away Long Chuyin's letter in confusion. He got up and walked to the grass hut next to him. Her master had said that he had left something for her in the 2 thatched cottages. Arbor sighed softly, feeling suffocated. Why won't the teacher tell us who her enemy is? Senior Long is a person of great wisdom, the little monk muttered to himself. Xiao Mu blinked, and a dark glint flashed through her eyes. Chapter 984. If teacher asked her to get rid of the people from Shantian Manor, she would be very happy. Qi Muan nodded. Perhaps this senior doesn't want her disciple, whom she has never met, to be in danger. Arbor got up and walked towards the straw hut on the left. On the other side, Mo Lian went to the Empress Dowager's Longevity Palace to pay his respects to his grandmother. The Empress Dowager affectionately pulled his hand to sit down and looked at him kindly. My good grandson, let grandmother take a good look at you. Aren't you a little thin? It's all father's fault, throwing a bunch of trivial matters to grandson all day long. Grandson is so busy that I'm thin. Mo Lian didn't hesitate to dig a hole for his father. The great king, who was originally sitting at the side, almost jumped up from his stool when he heard that. The Empress Dowager couldn't help but chuckle. She turned around and glared at the great king. Great king, the crown prince is busy with his marriage after all. Don't give him too many things to do during this period of time. Biased. Blatant favoritism. He's the crown prince of a country, what's there to be busy with about his marriage? It's just a matter of a word. The great king couldn't help but look at his mother with a slightly sour nose. He didn't dare to refute and nodded his head. Son knows. Prince Mo immediately acted obedient to his grandmother. Grandmother, you still love your grandson dearly. The Empress Dowager laughed and turned to look at him. She asked with a smile, where's your little wife? Quickly let grandmother see her. The little girl that my grandson has taken a fancy to must be the best. Speaking of this, Prince Mo felt a little stifled. He coughed lightly and said, in 2 days, grandmother. What's wrong? The Empress Dowager couldn't help but be curious when she saw him hemming and hawing. Then she said, oh, that's right. I heard that your wife was slightly injured after the competition 2 days ago. Then let her rest for a few more days. Grandmother isn't in a hurry. Prince Mo hesitated for a moment. Maybe my wife won't be able to come to the palace for a while. Empress Xiao, who was holding a teacup, trembled and almost spilled the tea on the floor. She glared at her son with her beautiful eyes. What's wrong? The Empress Dowager hurriedly asked, could it be that someone has wronged my granddaughter-in-law? That's right, she's really been wronged. Prince Mo hurriedly said, grandmother, you must support your granddaughter-in-law. Of course. The Empress Dowager hurriedly nodded and said, how can the child that my grandson likes not be good? Don't worry, if you have any grievances, just tell me. Grandma will take care of it for you. The great king bitterly made a sullen expression. Ahem, mother, it's better not to spoil your child too much. How is that doting? The Empress Dowager immediately retorted in annoyance. This grandson of mine has never made me worry about him since he was young. He's such a good child, how am I doting? Tell grandmother. Grandmother will make the decision for you too. The Empress Dowager made the final decision. The great king's entire face turned a bit green. He hurriedly interrupted, it's fine, it's fine. It's really fine. Mother, you must be tired from the journey and have just returned. Why don't you rest first? Why should I rest? The 12th prince has arrived. When Empress Xiao heard that her youngest son had arrived, her eyes immediately sharpened. Greetings to grandmother, father, mother. Eldest brother. That brat MOU's voice could be heard even before he arrived. Just hearing his voice made one feel especially energized. You still know to come back. Empress Xiao muttered in annoyance. You're tuning into the LoveLore Library YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.